Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, American Comics. Under Loki, the Frozen Fruit Ability. Chapter 21. Sub-Quest 2, the Second Stage. Congratulations to the host, successfully derived the second stage of Flying Thor on the basis of Flying Thor. The skills will be automatically included in the system skill library, and the host can check the skill proficiency through this system. Please increase your skill proficiency to 100% as soon as possible. The system rewards for this side mission will be issued after the second phase of the mission is completed. It wasn't until this time that Loki finally understood what the system was planning. Because of the skills he created himself as the host, the system can automatically include them in the skill library. Therefore, as long as he continues to extract wool from his host through phased side quests, the losses caused by the system sending tiers of ninja illusion before can be compensated little by little. Loki said, "How could this stingy dog system be so generous all of a sudden, assigning side missions to himself? It's really easy to calculate." But even knowing the calculations of the system, Loki still has to complete the task honestly. Because the system uses an open plan, as long as Loki is unwilling to give up the final mission reward, he can only proceed step by step according to the mission requirements. But after figuring out the routines of the system, if you encounter similar side tasks next, you can complete them more efficiently. I just don't know if I want to complete the second phase of the side missions with the system's urgency. Should I still have to make a fuss about Flying Thor's derivative skills? If so, then simply by practicing to improve the skill proficiency, Loki estimates that even with his Frost Titan lifespan, he may not be able to see the day when the proficiency is full. If not, then the task is much simpler to complete. As long as you practice repeatedly step by step, you will soon be able to brush up your skill proficiency to the full and then get the task rewards. But before moving on to the second stage of the side mission, Loki decided to create a set of exclusive weapons for the skill of Flying Thor's second stage. The so-called second stage of Flying Thor is actually jumping from a static space at a fixed point to a space jump at a moving point. By leaving the magic mark on the throwing object, and then throwing the throwing object in your hand, you can perform flexible short-distance space jumps according to the trajectory of the throwing object flight. According to his own combat system, Loki decided to use the dagger as his movement marker. Daggers are easy to carry and easy to hide. It can be used as a throwing object for a long-range attack, and then teleport to the enemy unexpectedly when the enemy is dodging. It can also be used as a melee weapon to increase the lethality of the attack in close combat. However, in order to avoid the embarrassing situation of picking up the dagger by himself after being thrown out by himself, Loki specially came to Nidavel and asked Dwarf King Ikwi to create a set of dagger artifacts with automatic recall ability for himself. When, in the forging room, the sound of heavy and crisp metal impacts can be heard endlessly. Hearing this voice, Loki knew that Eitri had started to forge his own dagger. Having nothing to do, he found a place to sit down at random, and began to think about Thor's conversation between him and Odin in the palace that day. Loki, if you want to be a king, why don't you try and become the king of Asgard? Odin's words caused Loki to look at him with shock. To be king of Asgard? Loki is the blood of the Frost Titan. How could Odin pass the throne of Asgard to him? Loki couldn't believe it, but judging from Odin's tone, he didn't seem to be joking. "I'm not joking. Whether it's Loki, you, or Thor, they are all my Odin's children. Since there must be someone who will be my heir, why can't this person be you? At least at this stage, you want Thor to be more mature and excellent. So let's fight for this throne, and I will choose the more excellent one between you and Thor to become the next monarch of Asgard." I believe that even if Thor loses this competition in the end, he didn't gain nothing. At that time, he must have become an Asgard warrior worthy of the name of Thor. Loki knew very well what Odin's intention was in doing this. He wanted Thor to grow into a more excellent existence through competition with him for the heir to the throne. But as a time traveler who had watched Marvel movies in his previous life, Loki knew very well that Odin's method would not work at all. As the eldest prince of Asgard, Thor has always lived in an environment full of stars and moons, and he simply cannot understand what kind of abilities and qualities a qualified king should possess. In Thor's view, as long as he defeats enough enemies and wins enough wars to bring glory to Asgard, that's what a monarch should do. So in the movie, Odin deprived Thor of the artifact, sealed the power in his body, and banished him to Midgard. It wasn't until after experiencing the life of ordinary people in Midgard that Thor began to understand what humility and benevolence are, and possessed the qualities needed to become a wise king. Therefore, Loki directly rejected Odin's proposal without any hesitation. It was of no value to him to compete with Thor for the throne of Asgard. It can neither help Thor to become a better Thor, nor can he obtain systematic task rewards. But before leaving the palace, Loki left this passage to Odin. Asgard as the leader of the entire 9 realms, such an important burden, my little arms and legs can't bear it, let Thor bear the burden bar. Although I rejected your proposal, I will use my own way to help this incompetent brother grow up. If Thor comes to you crying and complaining, don't blame me. It is said that only when a person has experienced pain can he truly grow. The reason why Loki has such a mature mentality now is not because he is a time traveler, but because he has struggled in the society before time traveling and has experienced 996 blessings. So if you want Thor to grow into a wise king who meets the requirements in Odin's mind, you can't just rely on lip service. You must let him know that your impulsive and reckless behavior will eventually make him lose everything he cares about most. How many floors can a bag of rice resist? Feel the pain. A bag of rice is resistant to the second floor, think pain. A bag of rice is too much, accept the pain. Let me wash a bag of rice, understand the pain. I washed so much mud in a bag of rice, people who don't understand pain, and that pile of black tiles, wakelet people who can't understand true peace. Only after experiencing such pain can Thor understand how heavy the responsibility of being a monarch is, and how precious the value of peace is. When definitely this plan is actually implemented, it will definitely be impossible to make the whole of Asgard pay for Thor's mistakes. So at this time, it's Loki's turn to play. The technique of magic and Narukumi uses everyone's fear to make it real, and makes people feel that it is reality. I believe that after passing this illusion, Thor should at least have a longer memory. But even if it doesn't work, Loki won't be disappointed. According to his memory before traveling, it will be more than 1,000 years before Odin dies and Thor inherits the throne. During these 1,000 years, it was enough for Thor to understand the pain of growing up. Just as Loki was planning how much pain Thor would feel in the next 1,000 years, the constant knocking in the forging room finally stopped. Then the door of the forging room was opened again, and Ikwi, who was covered in sweat, came out from inside, holding 4 dark double-edged daggers in his hands. The 4 double-edged daggers held in Ikwi's hands, like a knife used to cut steak. When Ikwi handed them over to Loki, the real master, they finally showed the normal file size. The moment he held the daggers in his hands, Loki felt a special connection with the 4 daggers, as if they had become an extension of his own hands. Loki tried to throw one of the daggers, the sharp blade sliced through the air, and the whole process of the dagger flying out was so quiet that no sound could be heard. Then with a thought, the dagger that he just threw flew back into his hand miraculously. Because the surrounding environment is relatively dark, the dagger's dark appearance reduces the reflection of light on it. If Loki is not focused enough and his eyesight is strong enough, he may not be able to detect the existence of the dagger. How about it? Isn't the dagger I made for you by myself not bad? Seeing the surprised expression on Loki's face, Ikwi said proudly. It's more than satisfied, it simply exceeded my expectations. Loki was not afraid of Ikwi's swelling, and directly praised him. Sure enough, the expression on Ikwi's face immediately became more proud. Let me tell you, these 4 daggers are made of uru metal. Not only are the blades extremely sharp and will never wear out, but they can also transmit magic power, which has an amplifying effect on magic. In addition, you should have discovered that the runes on the dagger, in addition to the summoning runes you requested before, I also added concealed runes. When the dagger is swung, it will not make any sound or reflect light, very suitable for sneak attack. Loki nodded when he heard the words. Although Ikwi's self-inflicted addition of hidden runes is indeed very suitable for him, why do his words sound so unpleasant? It's as if in Ikwi's eyes, he is the kind of despicable villain who likes to engage in sneak attacks. Thank you, Ikwi. Next time I have a chance, I, a young man who doesn't talk about martial arts, will definitely stab you in the back with the dagger you made. Loki didn't spare anyone, and didn't give Ikwi a chance to fight back after speaking. He launched Thor directly and flew back to his room in Asgard. Now that the weapon in hand has been obtained, it is naturally time to continue to complete the second phase of the side mission. Soon, daggers were flying everywhere in the room, and at the same time as the daggers, Loki was constantly flashing. Loki appeared in every corner of the room while flying the second stage of Thor, and at the same time opened the system interface with two purposes to check the skill proficiency of flying the second stage of Thor. Skill: Fly Thor second stage. Proficiency: 18%. However, after half a day of practice, the skill proficiency has been raised to 18%, which should be a normal performance for a genius like Loki. Since there is no problem with the improvement of proficiency, it means that the system did not play tricks on the calculation of proficiency this time, and secretly added some hidden rules. It seems that the system still knows that the leaks should not be cut too thoroughly, and the leaks must be cut off constantly if there is room. After confirming that there is no routine for the side missions in the second stage, Loki began to devote all his energy to the practice of flying Thor's second stage. After 2 days of sleepless nights and forgetting to eat and sleep to improve the proficiency of liver skills, the proficiency of Faith Thor's second stage is finally full. Skill: Fly Thor's second stage. Proficiency: 100%. Sub-Quest 2 is detected, the second stage has been completed, and the settlement of Sub-Task 2 is started. The mission is settled. Congratulations to the host for completing the side mission 2, and the rewards for this mission are now issued. Reward skills. Sub-Quest 2 is detected, the second stage has been completed, and the settlement of Sub-Task 2 is started. The mission is settled. Congratulations to the host for completing the side mission 2, and the rewards for this mission are now issued. Bonus skill: Moko Potmo. When Loki heard that the reward given by the system turned out to be Mok Potmo, he was really stunned, his jaw almost fell to the floor. Loki is not aimed at anyone, but compared with Mokobatama, the task rewards given by the system before can be said to be all fun. Skill: Moko Potmo. Proficiency: 30%. Skill introduction. From Taigu, Mephisto appearance demon essence user, shaking S Queen Estes. It is the ultimate skill that can only be used once a day. Everything will freeze in front of me. When the skill is activated, it can create a low temperature of absolute zero, completely stagnating the movement of microscopic particles, thus temporarily freezing time and space. After reading the skill introduction given by the system, and confirming that the Moko Botmo given by the system is the skill in his memory, Loki was so excited that he almost wanted to poke his temple with his index finger. It's so high that I can't do it. Loki can even imagine that when he fights against the enemy in the future, he will shout, "Smash Varudo!" in front of the enemy. Then a flying Thor second stage flashed in front of the enemy, and attacked the enemy's vitals with a knife while the opponent's time was stagnant. When the enemy's time reappeared and began to flow, he had already stood aside coolly, while the other party could only fall into eternal darkness with endless doubts in the dying struggle. Although there is a limit that it can only be used once a day, if it is really difficult to fight, Loki can still use Thor to run away. It can be said that Loki is invincible in this wave. By the way, the system. Why did the skills rewarded this time have a 30% proficiency from the very beginning? Because of the host's own Frost Titan bloodline and the previously obtained freezing power, the difficulty of using Mokbatmo has been reduced. Therefore, when calculating skill proficiency, this system takes these factors into account. Hia. Your system is really getting more and more sensible. Since you are such a kind-hearted host like me, it must not let you suffer. What do you think this is? As he spoke, magic power began to emerge from Loki's hands. The magic power in Loki's hands continuously flows in different directions and is compressed, finally forming a magic ball with high rotational density. At this time, the system's notification tone also sounded. Congratulations to the host, self-created magic skill, Helix Pill. Skills will be automatically included in the system skill library, and the host can check the skill proficiency through this system. Loki's move can be regarded as reciprocating. Since the rewards issued by the system are so generous, then Loki naturally doesn't mind letting the system take advantage of him. He wanted to try the spiral pill skill when he first created Flying Thor. However, because I was busy with the research on Tesseract at that time, and the branch tasks just released by the system had not been completed yet, this matter was temporarily put on hold. Today is the first time that Loki tries to recreate the moves of Helixswan in the form of magic power according to the anime content in his memory. Thanks to his extremely high ability and powerful magic control ability, he used this move very easily. And the system's response is also very fast. Since the host Loki has already delivered the benefits to the door, there is no reason not to accept it. It is detected that the host's self-created skills are included in this system. In order to encourage the host to make persistent efforts, a phased side task is now released. Submission 3. Level 1. Please increase your skill proficiency to 100% as soon as possible, and the second phase of the task will be released after the completion of the Level 1 task. P.S. Develop new derivative skills, which can make the task faster. What else can Loki say about the system's face on the stick? Seeing that the system rewarded Moko Botmo for himself, Loki definitely chose to accept the mission. Who knows if there will be any attractive rewards for this side mission. However, as the second prince of Asgard and an adult necromancer, it is not as easy for Loki to spend all day training in the training ground. Since he has enjoyed the glory and privileges brought by being a royal family, he naturally needs to take on the responsibilities of being a royal family. So from time to time, Loki needs to be a representative of Asgard, follow Odin or Frigga, and visit other countries for exchanges. Sometimes, if Asgard's allies or vassals invade or rebel, Loki also needs to follow Asgard's army to go out to support. Loki's life is constantly switching between performing Asgard's tasks or completing system tasks, alternating and repeating. However, this is not a bad thing for Loki. After all, the skills obtained from the system still need to be used in actual combat before they can be used flexibly. And Loki has gradually gained a brand new title other than the God of Lies and Tricks because of his powerful strength displayed in various wars in the 9 realms. In the army, some people called him the God of Frost because of his powerful freezing power. It is called Black Flash because of its elusive movement on the battlefield. For a time, almost all the people of Asgard from top to bottom felt that the naughty boy who only knew how to play pranks had grown into a trustworthy and reliable hero. In this regard, Thor's heart can be said to be full of resentment and resentment. But not because Loki's growing popularity threatened his claim to the throne of Asgard. It's because only Thor knows that Loki is not what the warriors and the populace seem to be. This guy Loki is obviously still as bad as he was when he was a child. No, he has gotten worse now, Thor said angrily alone in the room. Others may not know it, but Thor, the victim, knows Loki's true face very well. To others, Loki is Asgard's hero, but to Thor, Loki is still the old god of mischief. Loki doesn't know how, no matter where he hides, he can always come behind him in an instant and unexpectedly. If Loki simply wanted to scare him in this way, that's fine, but every time, Loki would leave a painful memory of inhumanity in Thor's heart. The only thing Thor can be sure of is that Loki has mastered a magic that can make people fall into the illusion of incomparable reality. In the real world that Loki made up for him, Thor experienced that because of his own recklessness, it triggered another war between Jotunheim and Asgard. Odin was furious at this, stripped him of all that he was Thor, and exiled him to Midgard. In the end, Odin died in the battle with Jotunheim, and Loki became the successor to the throne of Asgard. And he, in order to appease Jotunheim's wrath, was left forever in Midgard, and died in a mortal manner. This is already a very good ending. What is more tragic is that because of his impulsiveness, his mother Frigga was killed by the Dark Elves. Because of his arrogance, he attracted Surta, which led to the destruction of Ragnarok and Asgard. Yamjing's head caused half of the entire universe to be wiped out with a snap of fingers. Thor doesn't know exactly where Loki's imagination is coming from, but he knows it's going to drive him crazy. Before, he had put down his dignity and complained to Odin and Frigga, but the result was at most a few words of comfort, and finally nothing happened. How did Thor know that Loki and Odin had already passed the gas in private? Especially with Loki's plan working so well, Thor's reckless rampage on the battlefield has been drastically reduced. Odin can't wait to let Loki continue to increase his strength. How could he stop because Thor came to him to complain? Moreover, Loki is extremely measured in every attack, and when he sees Thor's mood is too low, he temporarily let him recover for a few days. When Thor's emotions are almost adjusted, he will continue to cast illusions on him. So even their mother Frigga, although she couldn't bear it after knowing this, still acquiesced to Loki's actions for the sake of Thor's future. A family of 4, except him, are all on Loki's side. In this case, it's no wonder that Thor's complaint can be useful. But Thor is not the only one who is depressed. Loki wasn't in a good mood these days. Because he hadn't received a new mission released by the system for a long time since he completed the side mission 3 released by the system a few years ago. According to the system's explanation, the side missions were originally a patch made by the system when the main missions were blocked due to insufficient host strength. The purpose is to allow the host to continue to complete the main task after improving his strength through the rewards of the side task. Therefore, the side quests of the system cannot be issued indefinitely. When the system determines that the strength of the host is enough to complete the main quest, no more side quests will be issued. Although with Loki's current strength, it is true that ability single-handedly overturned the entire Jotunheim. But on the one hand, the peace agreement signed between Jotunheim and Asgard has not yet expired, and on the other hand, the Frost Titan seems to have lost its ambition after losing the casket of ancient winters, and has not made any small moves. This makes Loki just want to complete the main task of Prince's Revenge, and he can't find an excuse. If Loki came to the door to declare war despite being unknown, wouldn't that be slapping Odin and the entire Asgard in the face? From other countries in the 9 realms, where else would anyone dare to trust Asgard? There is no way. Loki can't ignore the interests of the whole of Asgard in order to complete the task for himself. Since there are no new tasks and no new skill rewards, Loki will focus on improving his strength, focusing on improving the proficiency of skills and the cooperation between various skills. For example, the Moko Botmo I got before and the quest rewards I got from side quest 3, because I was too busy dealing with Asgard's affairs, and with the power of these 2 skills, there was almost no chance to use them on the battlefield. So until now, the proficiency of these 2 skills has not increased to 100%. In addition, with the increase of age, Loki can feel that his source of magic power and physical fitness are still slowly improving. Although the speed of this improvement is very slow, Loki's strength is indeed increasing. At this rate, Loki estimates that by the time he is around 1,000 years old, his physical fitness will be at its peak. At that time, maybe you can try to open the perfect version of the fairy mode again. The skills that Loki now masters include the magic learned in Asgard, the task rewards issued by the system, and various skills created by himself. There are too many skills, and the magic power consumed to use them at the same time is also huge. In particular, Moko Botmo's big move of freezing time in space can clear 90% of Loki's blue bar in one shot. If the freezing time needs to be extended, there will be no drop of magic power left. Loki is now in urgent need of a skill that can improve his magic life, so that he can fully display his strength. Wait a minute, Loki suddenly remembered something. If you want to improve your magic life, you can not only increase your upper limit but also use external force. How could I forget that thing? With it, wouldn't my current problem be easily solved? Infinite gems. Gems not only possess incomparable magical power, but also contain huge amounts of energy. Loki's idea is very simple. Since his own magic power cannot be increased in a short period of time, wouldn't it be better to find a cheat and directly borrow external energy? And what can satisfy Loki's huge consumption of mana is naturally infinite gems. Among the 6 infinite gems, Loki's first choice is the power gem. Because according to the memory before time travel, Loki basically knows the location of the 6 infinite gems. Needless to say, Time Gem is now serving as the core of Eye of Agamotto's magic weapon, and is protected by the Supreme Mage and Kamar Taj. Space Gem is Tesseract, at the moment is also in Midgard, and it is hidden there by Odin, and Loki can't act rashly either. Reality Gem is the TIE particles used by the Dark Elves thousands of years ago when they tried to rule the 9 realms. But later the Dark Elves were defeated by Bor, the god king of Asgard at that time, that is, Odin's father Bor. TIE particles were also sealed in a mysterious place by King Bor, and they have never been seen since. Mind Gem doesn't know if it has fallen into Thanos' hands at this time. If Thanos has already got it, Loki doesn't know where Thanos is now. If not, Loki doesn't know where it is. Soul Gem is very strange. It is located on a dead planet called Vomir Star. It needs to sacrifice the life of the person you love most in exchange for the appearance of Soul Gem. Even at this point in time, is there a paternity test expert waiting for someone who is destined to visit? As for the final power stone, Loki is almost certain that it is now located on a planet called Morag. The original civilization on this planet used its advanced technology to make the power gem into an artifact called the Universe Spirit Ball. However, due to the over-reliance on an excessive demand for the power of the power gem, the result was the backlash of the power gem, and the civilization of the entire planet was destroyed. After such an analysis and comparison, among the 6 infinite gems, the only one that Loki can completely determine the location of and can take away without any scruples is the power gem. Before Loki can find the power stone, though, he has one more thing to do. That is, ask Odin for leave. To put it bluntly, his current status is, to put it mildly, the second prince of Asgard, and to put it bluntly, he is an advanced worker. It's just that he doesn't need 996 to work as a migrant worker, and he also holds shares in the family business of Asgard, which can be distributed in the future. Since he was about to leave his post and go out to do errands, he naturally had to ask his immediate superior for leave first, and he could leave only after getting approval. So you came to me to ask for leave, because the universe is so big, you want to see it. On the throne, Odin looked down at Loki below, his serious expression filled his whole body with a sense of oppression. That's right, Loki couldn't say that he was going to find infinite gems. Odin managed to find the place before and hid the Tesseract in Midgard. To let him know that Loki is going to bring another one back on his own initiative, Odin will definitely pull out his eternal Gungnir on the spot and pump Loki's glutes hard. After being confirmed by Loki, Odin did not respond for a long time, but stared at Loki with his only remaining eye. Under Odin's gaze, Loki only felt that he was getting more and more guilty, and cold sweat was constantly breaking out on his forehead due to nervousness. Just when he was about to give up asking for leave and sneak out some time, Odin let out a long sigh, and then said helplessly, "Go, take a good look at this universe, and take a good rest by the way. Also, pay attention to safety and come back early." After speaking, Odin waved at Loki and drove him out of the palace. Loki was still a little confused, wondering why Odin suddenly agreed. But as long as he can get a leave of absence, at least he won't have to leave the country illegally. The fake Loki was invited, and he left the palace in a happy mood. But Odin in the palace frowned tightly, looking preoccupied. The reason why Odin is so worried is not because Asgard has encountered any insurmountable difficulties. On the contrary, in the past few years, because of the outstanding performance of Loki and Thor, Asgard has entered the most prosperous era since his reign. So apart from his status as king of Asgard, what remains is his status as a husband and father in the family. Who else could make Odin so distressed but his 2 children Loki and Thor? The trouble with Thor is that Thor grows too slowly. This kind of slowness is not just the slow growth of strength, but the slow maturity of mind. But for Loki's annoyance, it was because Loki grew up too fast. Whether in strength or in mind, Loki is far stronger than Thor, who is the big brother. So when Loki proposed to go to the outer universe to have a look, Odin's feelings as a father were very complicated. On the one hand, he is proud of Loki's maturity and independence, but on the other hand, he is worried whether it is too early for him to leave his protection now, and whether he will encounter dangers that he cannot handle in the outside world. What worries Odin even more is whether Loki's personality and thinking will change due to some encounters outside. If such a thing really happened, and there was no one who could show him the way, then would Loki become like the proudest daughter he had ever been, becoming. But after a long time of thinking, Odin finally decided to let Loki go through his own life according to his own ideas. No matter how many entanglements there are in his heart, Odin knows that he should not stop a child's courage and determination to go out for his own selfishness. It's really not an easy thing to be a good father. Odin shook his head, throwing out all the thoughts in his mind. Then stood up from the throne, ready to return to the bedroom to rest. At this time, Odin seemed to suddenly remember something, with a wry smile on his face. If Frigga knew that Loki was going to leave Asgard again, it would probably be uncomfortable for a while. I'd better go back to the study to rest recently. Boom, boom, boom. Hearing a knock on the door, Loki, who was packing his luggage, stopped what he was doing and walked towards the door. Just when the door was opened, a figure rushed in from the door. The man was only 40 centimeters away from Loki, looking straight into Loki's eyes and asked, I heard the news that you are going to leave Asgard to go outside to have a look, is it true? When Loki saw who it was, he couldn't help feeling dizzy. But everyone has already rushed in front of him. Loki can only bite the bullet and answer. That's right, you know that too, Sif. I've been living in Asgard since I was born, and the only time I've ever traveled far was in Midgard for half a year. It's just not beyond the scope of the 9 realms. So now that I have a little bit of strength to protect myself, I want to go outside the 9 realms and see what the outside world is like while I'm still young. The person who came was none other than Heimdall's younger sister, the Asgard female warrior who grew up with Loki's childhood sweetheart, Sif. The reason why Loki has such a headache is because Odin loves Sif very much, and when Sif was very young, he expected her to become Thor's wife in the future. And Thor in this period really liked the beautiful and powerful Sif. Unfortunately, the two were assigned to suppress a rebellion. During the mission, Sif was ambushed by the enemy and was in danger. At this moment, Loki, who noticed that Sif was in a bad situation, immediately threw the dagger in his hand, and then rushed to Sif with the second step of flying Thor. Loki, who appeared in a flash, hugged Sif's slender waist with one hand and led him to avoid the enemy's attack. With the other hand, he threw the dagger again, and used the second stage of flying Thor to bring the two out of the enemy's ambush. It seems that after this heroic rescue experience, Sif has a secret love for Loki, and every time Loki goes out to perform missions, Sif will apply to go with him. For Sif's obvious gesture of love, how could Loki not be aware of it because of his intelligence? And to be honest, a woman like Sif, who is naturally beautiful and has an independent personality, actively pursues herself, and Loki definitely is also very excited. As a result, Thor, Sif, and Loki become a love triangle where he loves her, she loves him, and he loves her. It's fine if it's just a love triangle, because Loki, who is a time traveler, knows that in the future Thor will find someone who really makes his heart move, but that person is not Sif, but a female scientist from Midgard. To add to Loki's headache, if he and Sif were together, wouldn't there really be reproductive isolation between them? After all, of the two of them, one belongs to the Aesir Protoss, while the other is an out-and-out Frost Titan. For this reason, Loki has never been able to truly confirm his feelings for Sif, and the relationship between the two has always been in an ambiguous state. Hearing Loki's affirmative answer, Sif looked at Loki with tears in his eyes. Why didn't you tell me about this in advance? Because you were afraid that I would pester you. Loki, you were ruthless, cruel, and unreasonable. Loki heard Sif's words. Where am I ruthless? Where is the cruelty? Where is the unreasonable trouble? The response almost blurted out subconsciously. Fortunately, Loki was able to maintain his sanity for the time being and stopped his mouth in time. But Sif seems to be able to read Loki's thoughts. Even if he didn't finish the sentence, he still guessed what he was going to say. Where are you not ruthless? Where are you not cruel? Where are you not making trouble for no reason? This time, Loki's flaming spirit of taking the lead finally couldn't hold back anymore, and immediately retorted, okay, even if I'm ruthless, cold, and unreasonable. Sif, you are ruthless, cold, and unreasonable. Okay, let's stop arguing. Loki suddenly stretched his right hand forward, half-tilted his head and said with his nostrils slightly open. It's my fault that I didn't mention to you in advance that I'm leaving Asgard. I promise you, when I come back from the outside, I will watch the snow, the stars and the moon with you, from poetry to philosophy of life, okay? Good. Sif, I feel thrilled and scared and excited and happy right now, just worried. Don't worry, we still enjoy this moment, this is a golden opportunity. Loki said and embraced Sif in his arms. Sif, do you think you are too much, but I like you're too much. It has been a long time since I was hugged by you like this last time. Loki, I like you too much. Sif, me too. Loki, what did you say? I didn't hear clearly. Sif, me too, me too, me too. I have as much as you have. No, I have more than you. Loki, you can't have more than me, because I'm full. Sif, you are full, then I will overflow. Loki, Sif, before leaving Asgard, I have a secret to tell you. Unexpectedly, Sif directly covered his ears. I won't listen. I won't listen. I won't listen. I'm here to join this family, not to tear it apart. Oh, you tormenting little thing. Since you don't want to hear my secrets, take this as a thought for you while I'm away from Asgard, Loki said. From the cuff of his clothes, he took out a dagger and handed it to Sif. This is the dagger specially made for me by the dwarf king Ikwi the first found in Nidavel. I left my magic mark on the dagger. If I'm not in Asgard, if you encounter any danger during your mission, as long as you instill your magic power into this dagger, I will be able to sense it and rush to your side as soon as possible. After listening to Loki's promise to himself, Sif looked down at the dagger that Loki handed him, trying to hide his blushing cheeks. I will take good care of the dagger you gave me. Remember to be safe and take care of yourself when you are outside. I will wait for you to come back in Asgard. After speaking, it seemed that he could no longer bear the ambiguous atmosphere in the room. Sif took the dagger in his hand, turned around and ran away shyly. Only Loki, who was awake, was left alone in the room, confused. What the hell did I do just now? That person just now was not me. That person just now was definitely not me. It must be that Aunt Chong has put a GU on my soul. After all these years in Asgard, Loki piloted a spaceship for the first time. Because in the 9 realms, no matter where you go, you can reach it through Bifrost. So although Asgard also has spaceships with a very high level of technology, they rarely have the opportunity to use them. The Xandar star that Loki is going to this time is a planet outside the rule of Asgard. Since there is no record about Morag in Asgard's star map, Loki can only determine based on the information obtained in the movie in his previous life that the location of Morag should be in the Milky Way. To find this planet whose civilization has died, he still needs to obtain the standard coordinates of the Morag star in the universe. So Loki set the first destination of this trip to Xandar, which is also located in the Milky Way. In a sense, what Loki told Odin and Sif wasn't a lie. He came out this time, in addition to getting the cosmic spirit ball on Morag, he also wanted to see the cultures of other life planets in this universe. Xandar is the most inclusive planet in the Milky Way, and various races can be seen on Xandar. Under the guardianship of the powerful Nova Corps, there is no discrimination or war on Xandar. Under such an environment, a large amount of news gathers here every day. Loki wants to get news about Morag, and Xandar is undoubtedly the best place to go. Moreover, Xandar, as a multi-ethnic and multiracial multicultural civilization, is able to manage the entire planet in such an orderly manner. There must be some experience that Asgard can learn from. This is also something that Loki, who wants to become the king of Jotunheim in the future, must learn. In terms of speed and convenience, spaceships are definitely inferior to Bifrost. However, after jumping through space through several wormholes, Loki has successfully reached Xandar. Different from the magical style of Asgard, Xandar star will make people feel emotional when you see it at first sight. This is what a technological civilization should look like in the future. On the flat road, only pedestrians pass, other means of transportation pass through the artificially constructed air corridor. In the sky, small ships of the Nova Corps can be seen flying by from time to time. On the ground, there are patrol robots walking in the streets and alleys. Loki didn't immediately start collecting news about Morag, but walked slowly on the streets of Xandar, analyzing the overall situation of this civilization. Xandar's inclusive multiculturalism makes its population far exceed that of Asgard. However, if the military strength of the two countries were compared, the winner would undoubtedly be Asgard. Therefore, after seeing the prosperous civilization on Xandar that eliminated discrimination and war, Loki couldn't help but have a bold idea. Can Asgard also follow the example of Xandar and use Asgard's strong military strength as a guarantee to unify all the countries in the 9 realms and integrate them into a multi-ethnic and multiracial multicultural civilization? In this way, the differences and wars among the 9 countries can be eliminated, so as to achieve long-term peace and stability. Thinking about it this way, this idea seems very ingenious, but after thinking about it carefully, Loki felt that he was still a little whimsical. If such a plan is to be realized, it is definitely not something that Asgard can unilaterally decide to do. Moreover, in the 9 realms, except for the humans in Midgard, most races have very long lifespans. The hatred between various forces and races usually lasts for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. If you want these hateful races to live together peacefully, you can't do it simply by relying on Asgard's force deterrence. If you consider the entire 9 realms, this idea is almost impossible to realize. But if I do become the king of Jotunheim in the future, maybe I can try something different under my rule. After finishing his observation of Xandar, Loki casually inquired on the side of the road, and found an all-purpose house that could trade the information he wanted. And the boss of this house of all things is also very powerful. In the ancient star map he collected, he quickly found the coordinates of the position of the Morag star. Definitely, if you want to get what you want in a place like Wanshiwu, the price you need to pay is naturally not low. But unfortunately, when Loki came out this time, he brought a lot of things on the spaceship, but he just didn't bring any money. But it doesn't matter, Loki always has a way to get what he wants. Planted an illusion on the boss of Master House, and the boss, generously, gave Loki the location information of the Morag star that Loki needed. According to the coordinates given by the boss, Morag star is not far from Xandar star where he is now. For space jumping, the shortest distance can be reached only through 2 space wormholes. It was a long night and dreamy, so Loki didn't stop, and immediately drove the spaceship to the coordinates of Morag star. After the spacecraft moved away from Xandar, the scenery outside the window quickly became desolate. But when Loki landed on Morag, he was deeply shocked by the sight he saw for the first time. This is the first time that Loki has seen with his own eyes what the entire planet will eventually look like after a civilization has completely disappeared. The traces of intelligent life living here are faintly visible, but under the sculpting of nature and time, all prosperity is attributed to the most primitive wildness. This made Loki suddenly recall a memory, where Ragnarok's Asgard happened. If I can't change the fate of Asgard, maybe after thousands of years, the prosperous Asgard will become like this. It seems that you can't get too complacent, you still have to continue to strengthen your own strength. As long as your strength is strong enough, all problems will become no problem. Thinking of this, Loki is even more urgent to get the Cosmic Spirit Orb. Although he knew that the Cosmic Spirit Ball was on Morag, he didn't know where it was. If you explore alone, you don't know that you will be able to find the temple where the Universe Spirit Ball is stored in the movie until the Year of the Monkey. Fortunately, Loki has been prepared for this. When magic cannot solve the problem, he will definitely rely on the power of technology. After returning to the cockpit for some operations, a dozen drones flew out of Loki's spaceship and began to scan the entire Morag star. Soon, one of the drones discovered the ruins of a temple emitting a violent energy reaction. Da, 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 Loki threw the Cosmic Spirit Ball in his hand one after another, with an expression of irrepressible joy. The civilization on Morag has been destroyed for an unknown number of years, and the various traps set up at the beginning have long since failed. After confirming the location of the Cosmic Spirit Ball, Loki went straight to Wonglong. He easily entered the secret room of the temple without even using elementalization along the way, and brought the Cosmic Spirit Ball back to the spaceship. But don't look at Loki throwing the Cosmic Spirit Ball around, looking very relaxed. This thing is a dangerous item in the absolute sense. As the core of the Cosmic Spirit Ball, the only ability of the Power Gem is to endow the user with absolute power. It seems to be very simple, but this power has the destructive power that can completely destroy everything. This destructive power is not only aimed at the target of the attack. If the user originally cannot withstand this force, then even the user himself will be destroyed by the ability of the Power Gem. Although the Power Gem is now covered with a protective shell of the Cosmic Spirit Ball, its danger cannot be taken lightly. Don't forget, the once prosperous civilization on Morag was completely destroyed by the backlash of the Power Gem. However, Loki is not worried about this. With a bug skill like Mokobatmo, even if there is any accident, Loki can solve it by freezing time and space. What Loki needs to consider now is how to more easily manipulate the energy in the Power Stone. Although the Cosmic Spirit Ball has suppressed most of the violent characteristics of the Power Gem as a protective shell, it is still not stable enough to output energy outward. In the process of casting magic, this sudden strong and weak energy output can easily cause the magic to get out of control, thus revealing flaws. From this point, it can be seen that there is a considerable gap between the maker of the Cosmic Spirit Orb and the maker of Tesseract and Eye of Agamotto. On the spaceship that shuttled aimlessly between the planets, the Cosmic Spirit Ball kept sliding up and down in Loki's hand, retracting and releasing, back and forth, fancy kaleidoscopic shapeshift. A few hours passed like this. For the problem of unstable energy output of the cosmic spirit ball, Loki still couldn't think of any good solution. Forget it, even if the strong man who made the cosmic spirit ball back then is not comparable to a great god like Agamotto, he is by no means comparable to the current me. Even if he couldn't solve the problem perfectly at that time, I'm afraid I can't find a solution even if I think about it. Let's go to Nidavel to ask Ikui for help, and rebuild the universe spirit ball. Ikui can even create the magic of Infinity Gauntlet, which can control 6 infinite gems. It shouldn't be a problem for him to solve some small flaws in the universe spirit ball. So Loki is in the cockpit, setting the destination of the spaceship autopilot to Asgard. Then prepare to take the cosmic spirit ball and directly use the flying Thor to teleport to the position where he left the magic mark in Nidavel. But just when Loki was about to launch Thor, he suddenly sensed a reaction from one of the magic imprints he left behind. Loki thought at the first time whether Sif had encountered some danger, but after some induction, he realized that it was the magic imprint he left in Kamar Taj holy place that reacted. Loki was a little puzzled. What was Dayesi looking for at this time? Was Kamar Taj in danger? Wrong. With Dayeshi's strength and the Eye of Agamotto in hand, even if Dormammu makes a comeback, he should not be able to threaten him. After a short thought, Loki still had no clue. So he decided to use Thor to go back to Kamar Taj to have a look. If nothing happened, it would definitely be the best, and it would be considered as going back to visit Daexi. If something really happens, with his current strength, he can also help Kamar Taj. Sensing the magic imprint that reacted just now, Loki had a thought, and the next moment, he appeared in the Kamar Taj Supreme Mage holy place. And at the moment, Dayeshi was sitting in the holy place, not showing any surprise at Loki's sudden appearance. So, teacher, you deliberately triggered the magic mark 1 left in order to call me back. That's right, Dayeshi nodded and admitted. Then teacher, you asked me to come back. Is there anything you need my help with? If so, just say it. I promised before that as long as I can do it, I will never refuse. After Loki finished speaking, Dayeshi nodded again. I'm looking for you this time, and I really need your help with one thing. By the way, let me tell you a piece of news. The corrupt mage who ambushed you before has been captured by us, and now we have locked him in the mirror space. He came back quietly originally intending to check on your news, but he didn't know that you had returned to Asgard a few years ago. As a result, he was discovered by mage who is now living in your previous room, and the fighting between the two attracted when the other mage noticed. We all worked together to arrest him. Hearing this news, Loki did not have any emotional fluctuations, and just said flatly, if you don't mention this, I'll almost forget it. It's fine if someone catches it, and it's better to be kept alive in the mirror space than to be swallowed up by Dormammu someday. Let's talk about what it is. You need my help. At this time, Dayeshi slowly revealed the purpose of this meeting. Do you still remember the Soul Castle you mentioned to me a few years ago? Do you remember the Soul Castle you mentioned to me a few years ago? Darish asked Loki. As a frost titan with a lifespan of thousands of years, Loki's memory cannot be too bad, otherwise, wouldn't he be dementia before he gets old? Definitely remember. We were also discussing the matter of the fallen mage that day, and then extended to the fact that mages are easily bewitched by Mephisto because their inner obsessions cannot be satisfied through white magic. At that time, I suggested to you that you can build a soul castle in Kamar Taj in the same way as Asgard. In this way, the souls of those heroes who fought for Kamar Taj can live in the soul castle after death. Middle. Wishes that were once unfulfilled in the material world can be made up in the spiritual world. In this way, the probability of mages being successfully bewitched by Mephisto can be greatly reduced. Having said that, Loki paused for a moment, then looked at Dayeshi in surprise and asked, Teacher, have you made up your mind to build a soul castle belonging to Kamar Taj, so you ask me to come back to help? Dayeshi nodded slightly and said, I have thought about it many times in the past few years. I and these other mages first came to Kamar Taj to learn magic, but they all had their own selfishness. Some people come to Kamar Taj because they are shocked by the wonder of magic and to satisfy their thirst for knowledge. Some people hope to make up for the regrets of life, old age, sickness and death through magic, so they come to Kamar Taj. Others entered the gates of Kamar Taj because of the pursuit of great strength and extraordinary power. But regardless of our original intentions, the result is that we did carry the responsibility that Kamar Taj gave us to get to where we are today. Even if a small number of people failed to stick to their positions in the middle, everyone didn't come here with a pure purpose, and no one is more noble than anyone else. What qualifications do we have to criticize them? Compared to the time and life that a mage gave for Kamar Taj, for justice, the magic that Kamar Taj taught him is worthless at all. In the final analysis, Kamar Taj owed them. In this case, as the supreme mage, I definitely want to make up to them. Therefore, the construction of the soul castle is imperative, and I definitely need your help from Loki. Loki nodded readily and agreed. There is definitely no problem. I have read the magic of creating the soul castle in a magic book in Asgard, and I have all the details in my mind. Just to build a soul castle, in addition to magic, there are also some magic materials that are also essential. Without them, it is impossible to build an environment and space that can satisfy the soul to reside in it. Father, after he decided to build the soul castle, it took a long time to prepare and consumed huge amounts of resources before finally successfully completing it. If we are going to reproduce a project like this in Kamar Taj, we have to take a long-term view. For Loki's suggestion, Dayeshi shook his head this time and did not agree. In order to ensure the stable and continuous operation of the magic barrier against the invasion of other dimensions, Kamar Taj needs to invest a lot of resources every year to protect Agamotto. The remaining 3 holy places are under maintenance. Kamar Taj doesn't have the extra resources to invest in the construction of the Soul Castle. Also, I've run out of time. What do you mean, there's no time? Loki's pupils dilated slightly, and there was a vague premonition in his mind. Dayeshi himself was rather calm. That's what you understand. No matter how powerful I am, I'm still just a mortal after all, and I will eventually face life, old age, sickness and death as a mortal. I am now 109 years old, which is quite a long life among mortals. I have experienced ordinary life in my life, and I have also experienced the magic of magic. Since I took over the important task of the Supreme Mage, I have been cautiously walking to this day, and I have finally lived up to the sacrifices made by my predecessors and the sacrifices made by my descendants. If my life ended here, it would be considered a fulfilling life. But I'm still not satisfied, or I still have regrets. If I can't complete the construction of the Soul Castle before leaving this world, maybe it will only exist in an illusory ideal forever. So, I have to finish it before I die. For that, I need your help, Loki. When I sensed that my lifespan was approaching, I began to think about how to build the Soul Castle without consuming any resources from Kamar Taj. Finally I found the answer, that is my soul. Use the powerful soul of a supreme mage to replace those materials, so that my soul will become the paradise where the souls of future heroes live. At the moment, Loki was completely stunned by Darashi's crazy idea. He couldn't imagine how much courage and madness a person must have before dying to come up with such a method and be willing to sacrifice his own soul. Even Loki, who is called a god by mortals, can only be ashamed of this lofty spirit. So regarding Dayeshi's decision, Loki did not persuade him to give up, but just asked him with a serious expression, "Are you sure? Once the sacrifice starts, there is no way to regret it." Dayeshi replied firmly, "I'm sure, I don't regret it." After a brief silence, Loki said, "Okay, I'll help you." The moment Loki agreed, a brilliant smile appeared on Dayeshi's face. At this moment, the holy aura emanating from Dayeshi made Loki feel that he is a god who can see through the sufferings of the world. Sure enough, the hymn of mankind is the hymn of courage, and the greatness of mankind is the greatness of courage. The old thief Araki sincerely does not deceive me. While Loki was preparing the magic circle for the construction of the Soul Castle, Dayeshi left the holy place and announced to all the mage and Kamar Taj the successor of the next supreme mage, and at the same time announced the existence of the Soul Castle to everyone. But he didn't tell everyone that the price he paid for building the Soul Castle was the powerful soul of his supreme mage. After all this was done, Dayeshi returned to the holy place with a young man, and introduced to the busy Loki, "Loki, this is the next supreme mage I have chosen, her name is Yao." Yao is a very capable child. I believe she will become a more outstanding supreme mage than me in the future. But she is still very young now. I hope that if she encounters any trouble in the future, Loki, you can help take care of her. Loki turned his head and glanced at the young man named Yao. He was a very pretty girl. The only fly in the ointment, perhaps, is the little bald head whose hair has disappeared without a trace at a young age. I can agree to this request, but I think Yao may not need my help and care at all. I can tell at a glance that she has the conditions to become a top powerhouse. After all, she has become bald now, so the distance to become stronger should not be far away. Having received Loki's promise, Dayesi nodded in relief. Yao, then you go out first. Regarding Supreme Mage, I have already explained to you what should be explained, and I will leave the rest to you. Yao solemnly bowed to Daieshi, turned and left the holy place. After she left, Daieshi's kind eyes just now gradually became determined. Loki already knew what he was thinking from the look in his eyes. Everything is ready. Thank you, Loki. Daieshi thanked. Loki waved his hand. There is nothing to thank. Since I promised, I will definitely do it. Then, bye, Daresh. Goodbye, Loki. After finishing speaking, Dareshi's soul had left his body and projected into the magic circle constructed by Loki. The next moment, as Loki constantly increased the output of magic power, the entire magic circle erupted with dazzling light. Chains emerged one after another from the magic circle, tightly binding the soul of Daieshi in it. Afterwards, a fiery flame rose in the magic circle and began to burn Daiesi's soul. Daiesi decided to use his own soul as the material for building the Hall of Valor, which meant that his soul needed to be burned by fire and repeatedly forged. In the extreme pain, he will gradually lose his consciousness, and finally become a part of the soul castle as the material to carry the soul. That's why before starting to prepare the magic circle, Loki asked Dareshi so seriously if he was really sure to do this. Under the burning of the magic flame, Daiesi's soul has gradually begun to melt. And at the moment, a giant hammer appeared in the magic circle. The sledgehammer kept falling on Daieshi's soul, beating him into shape, and then folding it, and then continuing to beat him again. During the whole process, Daiesi always had a faint smile on his face, and he didn't utter a single painful cry from the beginning to the end. I don't know how much time has passed, but Loki just provided magic power for the magic circle like a machine. It wasn't until the soul castle was successfully completed and the magic circle dissipated completely that Loki realized that he had burst into tears unconsciously. Seeing that the soul castle has been successfully built and began to slowly disappear into the void, Loki said softly again, "Goodbye, Daresh." When Loki walked out of the holy place, the new Supreme Mage was standing in front of the door. But she didn't look into the holy place, but locked her eyes firmly on Loki. "You were waiting for me?" Loki asked tentatively. The girl didn't answer his question, but instead asked, "Has Daiesi Mage gone?" You know, Loki was a little surprised. "Although I don't know your Asgard's magic, I have learned some rune characters." After seeing the magic circle inside, I guessed what Daiesi Mage was thinking. During Yao's narration, his tone was very calm. But the sadness in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Daiesi is right, you are indeed a mage with extraordinary abilities. Although I can't teach you the magic of Asgard on my own, if you want, I can teach you some tricks I created myself. The little tricks that Loki is talking about are definitely his Flying Thor series of magic and Spiral Pill series of magic. Now that Daieshi had promised to take care of Yao, it was natural to come up with something real. Moreover, the magical abilities shown by Yao also made Loki love talents. The principles of these two kinds of magic are very simple, and they are not exclusive to different magic systems, so they are just right to teach Yao. Regarding this, Yao was not polite, and directly said to Loki, "I want to learn." She has now become the new Supreme Mage, shouldering the important task of protecting the safety of the entire Midgard on the magic side. For her, the more means to enhance her strength, the better. "Okay, since you want to learn, I will teach you everything." Loki thinks that the new Supreme Mage is really more and more interesting, with high ability, courageous personality, and more importantly, the talent of a great emperor, bald head. The two of them didn't waste time. After the matter was decided, they returned to the Supreme Mage holy place and started teaching. In the past few years, although Loki has stagnated in the progress of the system, the study of skills has been going on. Like the magic of the Flying Thor series, in addition to the original Flying Thor and the later derived Flying Thor 2, he later developed the Flying Thor guide mind that can transfer space to other objects. As for the Spiral Ball series, let alone the various balls that Prince Naruto mastered in the combustible and non-combustible stages, Loki copied them all through magic power. There are more than 20 large and small file sizes, and various types of meatballs. Loki's original plan was to teach Yao the most basic magic of Flying Thor and Helix Pill today. After she practiced for a period of time, she would return to Kamartaj and slowly teach her the remaining series of derivative magic. But Loki still underestimated Yao's learning ability. He just explained the principle of magic 1 second before, and Yao was able to use this magic 1 second later, and Loki didn't even have time to demonstrate it to Yao. Moreover, after learning a spell, Yao can immediately draw inferences about it. Before Loki can teach her some derivative magic, Yao has already mastered it by himself. As a result, in just one afternoon, Yao learned all the magic of the Flying Thor series and the Spiral Pill series. Although some details and skills in using magic are still lacking, Yao's ability, even Loki, the #1 mage in the 9 realms, is amazed. Teacher, thank you very much for teaching me today. In the holy place, Yao respectfully saluted Loki, who was about to leave. Although Loki only taught her for an afternoon, Yao changed his address to teacher. This scene made Loki think of Daresh again. He was like Yao a few years ago. Even though Daieshi kept saying that he didn't teach him anything, Loki still called him a teacher all the time. Flying Thor, you have also learned to leave my magic imprint in the holy place. After I leave, if you need to find me, please notify me through the magic imprint. I will come as soon as possible after sensing it. Yao nodded and said, I understand, teacher. If there is anything I need to trouble you, teacher, I will definitely not be polite. By the way, teacher, I don't think the name Yao is aggressive enough. It really doesn't match my status and majesty as the supreme mage. How about changing my name to Ancient One, Ancient One? In the future, I will make those Mephistos who plan to invade our dimension be terrified when they hear my name, Ancient One, and dare not have any thoughts about our world anymore. ... Loki sat face up in the cockpit, staring blankly at the ship's ceiling. Until now, he still couldn't believe it. He didn't expect that the little bald head he taught was actually the other boss of the future-level Godfather, Ancient One. In the future, Ancient One has broken through the boundary between black magic and white magic, and can still maintain an immortal soul after the death of the body. Thinking of this, Loki suddenly felt a sense of urgency. I am still at the peak of level sub-Godfather, and have not broken through to level Godfather. If Ancient One came from behind and surpassed me, where would I put my face as a teacher? I can't continue to be in a daze here. I have to find Ikui quickly, help me solve the problem of the Universe Spirit Ball, and then find a way to complete the main task of the system as soon as possible. Otherwise, if this continues, I will really lose face. Flying Thor activated, Loki teleported directly onto Nadavel. Where did you get such a big treasure? It's a waste of money, it's a waste of money. Look here, how can you use this method to forge it? And here, the rune is obviously wrong. After Loki handed the cosmic spirit ball in his hand to Ikui to check, Ikui kept chattering and pulling him, pointing out to him all kinds of low-level mistakes made in the process of building the cosmic spirit ball. Okay, I'm here to ask you to help improve this thing, not to listen to your complaints about the meeting. Ikui, just tell me, if you can solve the problem of unstable energy output of this thing, let's finish it, son. Loki, who was already impatient, interrupted him directly. Definitely no problem, you can come to me for this matter. I'm not bragging, there is really no one in the 9 realms who can help you solve this problem except me. Ikui assured, patted his chest. The person who built this cosmic spirit ball, although the forging skills are not very good, but what they made is not useless, at least it can suppress the violent core of this thing. To solve the problem of unstable energy output, the easiest and quickest way is to put a new protective shell on the outside. Loki's eyes lit up when he heard the words. He jumped onto Ikui's shoulder, and then whispered in his ear, if this is the case, can this new protective shell help me make it like this, that is? Ikui listened to each request made by Loki, and constantly nodded his huge amounts of head. The requirements you mentioned are not a problem for me. However, if the entire protective case is in that color, wouldn't it be a bit too ostentatious? And the shape you mentioned, isn't it too exaggerated? Quote. Loki put his hands behind his back and shook his head pretending to be profound. You don't understand. Sometimes men just need some unrealistic romance. The shape I proposed, although it is not practical, but it can't stand it handsome. If I hang it on my chest at that time, don't you think it is very handsome? Chapter 31. Although he didn't know what the so-called romance of a man was in Loki's mouth, Ikki still built a new protective shell according to his request. It was a square pyramid made of building blocks of various shapes, and the whole body showed a golden yellow luster. On one of the triangular faces of the cone, a hollow eye symbol is chiseled. Through the position of the eyeballs of this symbol, one can just see the cosmic spirit ball nested inside the quadrangular pyramid. At the center of the bottom of the cone, there is also a gold ring, and a rough silver necklace is buckled on the ring. Try it. The problem of unstable energy output has been solved before, and I don't know how you came up with such a strange shape. Ikki handed Gold's pyramid to Loki, muttering in his mouth. Loki is not as knowledgeable as Ikki. He is a rough old man who doesn't know what romance is. Taking the gold pyramid that Ikki handed him, Loki stroked its smooth surface with his hands, showing a very obscene expression on his face. The strange shape that Ikki mentioned is actually the 1,000-year-old building blocks worn by the protagonist in an anime, Yu-Gi-Oh!, that Loki had seen in his previous life. When I watched this anime as a child, Loki thought that if he could wear a 1,000-year-old building block, he would look very cool. It's a pity that there was no such condition at that time. The only thing that could be hung around the neck was the key of the house. Now, although it's a different world, it can be regarded as satisfying the childhood regrets of the previous life. What's more, the shape of the 1,000-year-old building blocks, even if it is changed to another universe, Loki still thinks it is very handsome. Wearing the Millennium building block on his chest, Loki began to try to mobilize the energy in the power gem for his own use. The originally violent and unstable energy, after being suppressed by the cosmic spirit ball and balanced by the 1,000-year building blocks, when it came to Loki's hands, it was already docile like a newborn baby. Under Loki's control, this energy quickly rotated and compressed, and finally formed a spiral pill in his hands that he had practiced for 2.5 years. Hey, be careful, don't let that thing blow up my place. Seeing the appearance of Helix Wan, Ikki only felt his scalp tingling, and quickly reminded him. First, I'm paying attention now. Second, my name is Loki Odinson if I don't call you. Third, your craftsmanship is awesome, I will come to you next time I need you. Fourth, if I have something to do let's go first, bye. As soon as the words fell, Loki and the spiral pill in his hand disappeared from Ikki's sight. On the desolate and dead planet Morag, Loki suddenly appeared here with a spiral pill in his hand. And the moment Loki landed, he also pressed the spiral pill in his hand to the ground at the same time. With a huge amount of explosion, the ground instantly produced a large amount of smoke and dust under the powerful destructive force. After the smoke and dust dissipated, what the blow just now left on the ground was a huge crater comparable to a meteorite impact. Even Loki himself was amazed by the power of the spiral pill just now. It seems that I didn't feel wrong when I was in Nadeval. Although after the adjustment of the two protective shells of the cosmic spirit ball and the 1,000-year building block, the energy of the power gem can already be used normally. But the quality of this energy is much higher than my own magic power, so that under the same amount of consumption, the power and effect of the skills used with the help of power gems are dozens of times that of my own magic power. If this is the case, then not only can Moko Batmo, the killer weapon at the bottom of the box, be freed from the restriction that it can only be used once a day, even the duration of freezing time and space after using Moko Batmo can be greatly improved. It just so happens that there are no life forms on this planet, so let's try the effect of Mahapadmo here. Everything in the world will be frozen in front of me, hit Varudo. As Loki Zhong shouted the name of the move out of the blue, and then twisted his body to make a JoJo standing motion, the whole world seemed to suddenly quiet down. Within the range covered by the Mokbatmo skill, the only one who can move freely is Loki himself who activated this skill. While silently counting the time in his mind, Loki began to wreak havoc in this completely still space. It wasn't until Loki counted silently to 60 seconds that Mokbatmo's effect of freezing time and space was completely released. And as the flow of time returned to normal, all the places where Loki had destroyed just now exploded at the same time. The blazing flames shot up into the sky, as if a small sun had risen from the ground of Star Morag. Just when the flame was about to rise to its highest point in the air, Loki activated his skill again. Smash Varudo. The flame was fixed there so abruptly, like a tombstone erected for the planet Morag. But this time, Mokobatama only lasted less than 10 seconds, and the effect of freezing time and space ended. At the same time, Loki could feel the position of his temple, and there was an inexplicable tingling faintly. It seems that even in the case of sufficient magic power, it is impossible to use a move like Mokobatma without restrictions. In addition to magic power, it will also consume my mental power. However, if the original 60-second time stop duration is divided, each time space freeze lasts only a few seconds, which will not only increase the number of uses but also reduce the mental load a lot. After paying the price of temporary dizziness, Loki finally figured out the limit of his current ability. As the saying goes, if you know yourself and the enemy, you will never be imperiled in 100 battles. Only by clearly understanding one's own strength and the enemy's strength can one flexibly adapt to actual combat. Loki has always done a good job, at least in terms of waking up to himself. Loki is very satisfied with the increase in his own strength brought by the Millennium building blocks. For now, except for the ultimate move like Mokobatmo, other skills can be used without restriction. But the surrounding environment may not be so happy. After his ravages just now, the place where the pillar of fire rose has now formed a lava lake. Bubbles and flames are still popping up on the surface of the lava lake. It can be seen that even after the explosion is over, the scorching heat is still scorching the land. Fortunately, on this planet, there are no environmentally friendly girls who stand up and point to Loki's nose and ask, "Oyster sauce," so Loki doesn't need to worry about any environmental issues. However, even Loki himself may not have thought that although his actions did not attract protests from environmentalists, they brought him a big trouble. Having finished testing the Millennium Block, Loki is preparing to use the Flying Thor to leave Morag. But at this moment, a voice suddenly rang in his ear. "I thought there were no life forms on this planet, but I didn't expect to meet a single Asgard." From the tone of the man's voice, it seemed that he was very happy to meet Loki unexpectedly. But Loki at the moment, for the sudden appearance of the unknown existence, only felt shuddering in his heart. And his instinct told him that the owner of this voice was very dangerous. "You seem nervous, ha ha ha. Don't worry, I won't hurt you, you look behind." The man's reassurance did nothing for Loki. But following the direction indicated by the voice, he finally saw the true face of that person. When Loki turned around, the first thing he saw was a white spaceship shaped like a goose egg. On top of the spaceship stood a man. The man was not wearing any HEU flight suit, and his hands released the energy of blue to connect him to the spaceship, which looked like he was pulling the reins in his hands, and the spaceship was the white horse he was riding. However, combined with his slightly fat figure, this matter looks very inconsistent. After confirming that Loki had seen him, the man jumped off the top of the spaceship and landed less than 10 meters away from him in front of Loki. He looked at Loki with a kind smile on his face, and with his gray beard and hair, it was easy to feel close to him. But no matter how friendly he appears, Loki doesn't trust someone he's meeting for the first time easily. What's more, from the blue energy released from his hand just now, Loki can feel that the opponent's strength is stronger than his own. Loki looked at him vigilantly, but the man seemed to be unaware of it, or out of contempt for the weak Loki, he still walked towards Loki with a smile on his face. "Young man, relax. I'm just a lonely wanderer drifting in the universe, hoping to find more life. Can you tell me how you did what you just did?" Facing his question, Loki had a puzzled look on his face. Because logically speaking, with his energy intensity and control over energy just now, it is impossible not to master the skill of energy explosion. Even if it caused a greater degree of damage, it should not be difficult for this man. But why did he stop his spaceship and come to Loki to ask this question? However, in the next second, Loki knew the scalp-numbing answer from his words. "How did you manage to completely stop the movement inside the molecule?" My spaceship passed by here just now. When I discovered this, I was almost terrified. Although the man said that he was about to be frightened, there was no change in expression on his face. This guy, he can actually feel that time and space are frozen. Loki was very surprised by this. At the same time, the judgment of this man's strength and danger level has been raised by another level. Sorry, I have nothing to say about the matter you asked. Now I am leaving here, please continue your drifting journey in the universe. No, please wait a moment. Seeing that Loki was about to leave, an energy chain appeared in the man's hand, trying to force Loki to stay. But Loki, who was always vigilant, was trapped by him with a light move. Flowers in the mirror and moon in the water. Black is surrounded by mist, and Loki is now a flower reflected in the mirror, and a moon floating in the water. The energy chain created by the opponent directly penetrates the phantom left by Loki. 2 thorny spears. On the other hand, after dodging the opponent's attack, Loki's body did not relax. The 2 ice spears instantly condensed and fired towards each other. To Loki's surprise, the man didn't make any dodge movements. The 2 thorny spears hit his chest directly, and then pierced into the ground, nailing his whole body in place. Even so, the man still had that fake kind smile on his face. He stretched out his hands to crush the ice spear that pierced his body, but the penetrating wound left on his chest didn't even have a trace of blood. Silk threads made of countless ice blue energies quickly gushed out from the wound, but within a short while, the man had already recovered from the inside to the outside. This guy, what kind of monster is it? His body is actually completely composed of molecules controlled by divine power. At this moment, Loki finally understood how his former enemy felt when he was able to elementalize himself. But Loki doesn't intend to use the flying Thor to escape now. After the first confrontation just now, Loki has already analyzed that the strength of this mysterious person is indeed superior to him. But the actual combat ability is insufficient, lack of combat experience and combat skills. Although he has just used the Moko Padmo twice, he is not in the best state of mind right now. But even if the 2 sides start to make serious moves, Loki is sure to get out unscathed. That being the case, I definitely need to investigate carefully, what is the origin of this mysterious man? Is it because of the pendant on your chest? The magic that can pause time. In a confrontation, the intelligence battle between the 2 sides is always relative. Obviously, while Loki was collecting information about the other party was also collecting information about Loki. Loki successively used Mirror Flower Water Moon and 2 thorny spears by mobilizing the energy in the Millennium building blocks. Although the whole process took only a few seconds, this information was still captured by the man. This made Loki silently add one more item to him in his heart, the ability to have a very sensitive sensory energy. Aren't you answering? Ha ha ha, it seems I guessed it right. To appear in this place with such a powerful artifact, your identity in Asgard shouldn't be easy, right? The man didn't care about Loki's silence, he was still talking to himself with a relaxed expression. Your elders may have given you such a precious treasure because they were worried that you would be in danger outside. However, they may not have heard such a sentence, a man is not guilty, but a woman is guilty. Since you have sent the treasure to me, how can I let it go so easily? I don't know where you Asgard got this treasure. The energy contained in it makes even my natural Shendu feel terrified. With this treasure, it won't be long before my duplications can spread all over the universe. At that time, I will be the master of the universe. Young man, if you leave your things now, I can let you go for Odin's sake. Otherwise, when I get angry, your life will be lost. Now Loki is 100% sure that this guy must be a villain and not run away. Because only the villain would say so many words before making a move, revealing his plan and purpose unabashedly. And after listening to the other party's series of confessions, Loki has basically guessed his true identity. If the guess is correct, he should be the famous scumbag in the Marvel movie universe, the 3,000 women who ascended in the daytime, and the foolish biological father of Star-Lord, the god Ego. It's no wonder that this guy is so emboldened to talk here. In the face of his level godfather's strength, if it were someone else, I'm afraid he would have obediently followed what he said. It's a pity that he ran into Loki, who is a badass. With the blessing of multiple skills such as Mirror Flower and Water Moon, Ice Elementalization, and Flying Thor, Loki's life-saving ability can almost be said to be at the full level. Unless the enemy holds infinite gems, an artifact that can attack from the rule level, or possesses strength above the level single universe. Otherwise, no matter who the opponent is, Loki is inherently invincible. What's more, half-baked gods like Yi Jae were directly dealt with by his filial son Xingju with a bomb in the movie. There is no other divine power of the level Godfather, but no other body of the level Godfather. As long as he can find his body, Loki's strength is enough to kill him. Thinking of this, Loki is already a little eager to try. If he could kill Egg at this moment, wouldn't that Star-Lord who punched an Avengers Alliance 4 inches shit stick in the future not appear? Thinking about it this way, Loki became even more excited about killing the scumbag Egg. But the ego standing in front of me now is just a duplication created by that scumbag man using his divine power to manipulate molecules. If you want to really kill him, you still have to find his body. Since this is the case, I can only let this guy's duplication bring me in front of his real body. Loki calmly planned the details of the next action in his mind, while duplication, a scumbag standing not far away, completely lost patience when he saw that Loki was completely unmoved by his proposal. Young man, since you don't know good from bad, don't blame me for being rude. With that said, Egg Scum Duplication launched an attack on Loki. After the fight just now, he also seems to understand that relying solely on the ability of duplication can't do anything to win Loki. So this time, duplication directly rooted the divine power in its body into the land of Star Morag. Then, under the ability of the divine manipulator, the land around the two of them seemed to come alive. Stone dragons and earth dragons surged from the ground towards Loki and strangled them. Under such an overwhelming attack, there is no room to dodge at all. But all this can't stop Loki, Ice Age. The extremely cold freezing air quickly spread from Loki to the surroundings, freezing everything it touched along the way into ice. The stone dragons and earth dragons that were still twisting their bodies just now turned into wonders. And Loki is like the king of this frozen world, surrounded by them in the center. Loki's move of Ice Age really shocked Ego. Almost half of Morag planet was covered by ice, and the range of freezing air's influence even surpassed his divine power as a god. But at the same time, Yi Jae looked at the Millennium building block with more and more fiery eyes. The stronger the ability of the 1,000-year building block, the more benefits he can bring to himself after he succeeds. With this in mind, Yi Jae decided not to keep his strength, and input almost all the divine power in the duplication into the energy root system that was planted just now. As egg duplication began to do its best, everything that was frozen by Loki was activated again. It's like everything that Loki did just now made Egg's wedding dress. Those substances controlled by Egg, after Loki put a pair of frost armor on them, turned his head and attacked Loki again. Not only that, while Yi Jae relaunched the offensive, he also prepared a dark hand. He took advantage of Loki's focus on the impending attack in front of him, and directly removed all the ground under Loki's feet. Loki, who suddenly lost support under his feet, had no way to adjust his center of gravity or change his position. Seeing that the earth dragon in ice armor was about to hit Loki's body, there was no panic in Loki's eyes. Boom, 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 boom. Under Ego's duplication control, hundreds of thousands of tons of material poured down towards the location, and the violent vibration even cracked the ground frozen by Loki because it couldn't bear it. When Egg's attack finally stopped, the flat ground where Loki had just stood had changed. The smoke and dust dissipated, and a mountain peak mixed with ice, mud and rock stood there abruptly. Seeing this scene, Yi Jae's duplication finally revealed his true face. The kind fake smile that has remained unchanged for thousands of years has now been replaced by a face that is contemptuous and contemptuous of everything. I got you. Loki's voice came from behind him just as Egg's spirit relaxed. It turns out that Loki threw a dagger at the position of Egg duplication when he activated Ice Age. For Loki's action, Ego definitely also discovered it. But because the dagger didn't pose any threat to him, Egg subconsciously ignored its existence. But it was this dagger that he ignored, which drew a parabola in the air and landed in the blind spot behind him. Relying on this dagger, Loki used Thor's second flight at the last moment and teleported to Egg's back. Then, when the opponent thought that he had the chance to win, he swung the dagger in his hand and stabbed the back of the duplication. As a villain, it's fine if you don't know the reason why villains die because of talking too much, and you don't even understand the law that there is smoke without injury. You, a villain, have failed too much. Under Egg's surprised eyes, Loki smiled evilly with his mouth twisted, and directly filled the taunt. You can't hurt me, as long as my divine power is still there, I can continue self-healing. Being teased by Loki, the duplication turned around and yelled at Loki angrily. But the next second, just as he was about to attack Loki again, Loki disappeared completely from his sight. Ah, get out of here. There is no end between us, even if it is Asgard, I will find you. Duplication, which lost its target, can only be alone on the deserted planet Morag, impotent and furious. That scumbag, he should still be on Morag now, incompetently furious at the boundless wilderness. Ha 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 ha. Loki, who returned to the spaceship, could imagine the expression on Ego's face when he suddenly disappeared. Definitely the reason Loki chose to fly Thor back to the spaceship was not to escape. It's just that, knowing that Egg on Morag is a duplication, Loki felt that he didn't need to waste energy on him. Anyway, no matter how many times his attack hits the opponent, that guy will recover to his original state in a short time. Even if Loki finds a way to eliminate the opponent, wasting a lot of time to eliminate a duplication is a complete loss for Loki. So after Loki decided to kill Egg's body, he had already formulated a very detailed action plan in his mind. From his use of Ice Age to the dagger ignored by Egg, and finally launching Flying Thor's second stage, he stabbed into Egg's duplication. Every move is within Loki's calculations. But as the god of tricks and lies, how could Loki's calculations be so simple? Now that he already knew that his attack could not cause fatal damage to Egg's duplication, why did Loki stab that knife, stupidly? The answer is that all of this is actually a cover-up to confuse Egg duplication. Loki first stabbed to attract duplication's attention, and then provoke the other party's emotions with verbal taunts. In the end, when Egg duplication was burning with anger and was about to lose his mind, Loki had unconsciously left the imprint of Flying Thor's magic power on the back of the opponent's neck. After finishing all this, Loki left gracefully, waving his sleeves without taking a single cloud. The only thing left for Egg's duplication is that crooked smile full of irony. I'm afraid even if the Dragon King returns, he can only bow down. The trap has been set. Next, Loki just needs to quietly wait for the prey to take the bait. Once duplication returns to the planet where Ego is located with the magical imprint left by Loki, he can teleport there directly and give the other party a surprise mother killer. For the next several months, Loki piloted the spaceship without making a single space jump. Just roaming in the universe in such a leisurely manner, while constantly collecting information on the various footholds of Ego duplication. After repeated analysis and comparison of the coordinates of these footholds, Loki finally determined the coordinates of the location of Ego's body. Because of Ege's duplication, every time he leaves from a planet, he will return to the same coordinates for a period of time. Loki guesses that duplication consumes most of its divine power every time it plants its energy roots on a new planet. Therefore, after a duplication completes a mission, it needs to return to the planet where the main body is located to replenish the lack of divine power in the body. Now the location coordinates of Ego's body have been determined, and the rest is to wait until duplication returns to the planet body again for rest. According to his observation during this period, the average time for duplication to complete a task is about a week. If there is no accident, the other party will return to the planet body again after 7 days. However, Loki will not waste these 7 days in vain. Since the last time he used the Mokobatmo twice on Morag, his proficiency in this skill has reached 70%. During these 7 days, it was completely enough for Loki to increase the skill proficiency of Mokobatmo to 100%, and then adjust his own state to the peak. As a result, on the 4th day, Loki had already completed the first small goal. Skill: Moko Patmo. Proficiency: 100%. Skill Introduction. From Taigu, Mephisto Appearance Demon Essence User, Shaking S Queen Estes. When the skill is activated, it can create a low temperature of absolute zero, completely stagnating the movement of microscopic particles, thus temporarily freezing time and space. With the help of the power of thousand-year building blocks, time and space can be frozen for up to 90 seconds. At 100% proficiency level, Loki's control over mental power and magic power is more refined. As a result, the time he can freeze time and space has increased from nearly 70 seconds on Morag to today's full 90 seconds. When fighting an enemy, the 90-second pause is more than enough time for Loki to smash hundreds of steamrollers into the enemy's face. For the remaining few days, Loki was not doing any training, but was meditating to adjust his mental and physical state. Until the sixth night, Loki suddenly sensed that the duplication had returned to the coordinates of the planet itself. Although it was a day earlier than expected, Loki at the moment is in good shape. After staying on the spaceship for such a long time, he went through 2 days of meditation adjustments. Even Loki, who likes to be flat with times and square root, feels a little itchy. Loki adjusted the spaceship to autopilot mode, and then did not teleport to Igo's body immediately, but first flew to the Morag star by flying Thor. Coming to this desolate planet again, the corners of Loki's mouth could not help but curl up. If Thor saw Loki's expression now, he would turn and run without any hesitation. Because whenever Loki shows this expression, everyone who sees it will be treated very badly by Loki. And this time would be no exception. Loki raised his right hand above his head, and constantly mobilized energy from the Millennium Block. Huge amounts of energy are constantly rotating and compressing in Loki's palm, but the volume has not shrunk like the spiral pills used in the past, but is getting bigger and bigger. While the volume of Helix pill continued to expand, a gust of wind began to appear around Loki. You must know that because the galaxy where the Morag star is located has no fixed star radiation, the air convection on this planet is extremely weak, and it is impossible to form a natural wind at all. But now, there is an unusually light wind blowing around Loki, and the wind is constantly increasing. As the wind gradually increased, wind blades like the blades of an electric fan appeared around the huge amounts of Helix wand, and at the same time, the whole wand began to emit a piercing buzzing sound constantly. The next moment, Loki launched Thor again, and this time he finally appeared on Egg's planet itself. Ego, eat me, super big jade spiral shuriken. Ego, eat me, super big jade spiral shuriken. Egg duplication, who was flying Thor to locate the signpost, didn't hold back for even a second in front of Loki's palm technique that descended from the sky, before he was divided into a pile by the countless tiny magic blades of the super large jade spiral shuriken molecular. But Loki's offensive didn't stop here. The duplication that eliminated Egg was just an appetizer for him, and the real main meal, the main body, hadn't been served yet. Loki was still constantly injecting the energy of the Millennium building blocks into the spiral pill, and then at the moment when he could no longer control it, he threw out the super large jade spiral shuriken that was about to run out of control. The berserk super large jade spiral shuriken directly came into close contact with Ego's planet itself, but there was no violent explosion seen as imagined. The high-speed rotating super-large jade spiral shuriken seems to have become an efficient shield machine. After touching the surface of the planet, it began to penetrate hard towards the core position where Ego's body is located. All the obstacles that stand in front of it along the way will be disintegrated by its countless tiny magic blades. At this time, the planet's crust and mantle began to move relatively substantially, which caused strong earthquakes on the surface. Yi Jie seems to hope to change the original trajectory of the super-large jade spiral shuriken through this relative movement between the strata. But in Loki's view, this is Egg, the aloof god, trembling uncontrollably because of too much fear when he realizes that he is about to face death. Ha 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 ha, Egg, you half-god, are you shaking with fear? You can't do this. Look, the Millennium building block you want is still hanging around my neck. I'm delivering it to my door now. How can you do it if you don't hesitate? Loki kept provoking Egg with words, but maybe he had more energy than he wanted, and Ego didn't even have a word of rebuttal except that he trembled more violently. Speak up, you were very arrogant when you tried to grab my things on Morag, why don't you speak now? Ego, don't hide in there and keep quiet, I know you're home. You're capable of snatching things, why can't you speak? The unilateral provocation failed to get Ego's response, so Loki decided to give this scumbag another boost. Mobilizing the energy of the thousand-year building blocks, Loki began to quickly condense spiral pill shurikens one by one, and then launched a carpet bombing towards the surface of the planet. The inexhaustible energy of the Millennium building blocks, combined with Loki's super magic control ability, directly makes him a humanoid Gatling fort that continuously fires spiral pill shurikens. Although the power of the Helix Maru Shuriken is not as powerful as the Super Jade Helix Shuriken, under Loki's high density and continuous attacks, cracks can already be seen on the surface. And these cracks are still constantly spreading around. Even if Ego keeps sending divine power to repair, it still can't keep up with the speed of Loki's destruction. Soon, Egg stopped using divine power to repair the planet's crust. Just when Loki thought that Egg was going to give up struggling, he suddenly noticed something was wrong. Why does the crust on the surface of the planet seem to be actively cracking? It's not an illusion, the crust on the planet's surface is indeed actively cracking. What exactly does Egg want to do? Loki's doubts didn't last long, and Egg gave the answer with practical actions. As an old guy who has existed in the universe for millions of years, how could Yijie give up his life so easily? This planet is a protective shell created by Ego after spending a long time and a lot of divine power in order to protect his fragile core. And now, since this protective shell could no longer effectively protect him, and might even become a drag on him, Egg would abandon it without hesitation. As the strata of the entire planet continued to crack, Loki finally knew what Egg was planning. On the ground only a few hundred meters away from Loki, 5 towering peaks suddenly pierced through the rock formations on the surface. Immediately afterwards, a huge amount of rock farther away also broke through the rock formation on the surface and slowly emerged from the ground. But Loki knew that those were not mountains and rocks at all, but Ego's huge body rebuilt after abandoning the protective shell of the past. The 5 mountain peaks are actually the palms of Yijie's slowly raised upwards, and the huge rock that floats out of the ground is the head of his huge body. Ego gave up the strong defense brought by the original planet, and chose to build huge amounts of the body of the gods in exchange for more flexible mobility. At the same time, due to the change in appearance, Loki could no longer tell which part of the body Ego transferred his core to. It's even possible for Ego to keep his core shifted in the body in exchange for a higher security type. It would definitely be bad news for Loki if Egg broke out of the ground. This meant that not only would he not be able to successfully kill Yijie, but he would also suffer retaliation from Yijie himself in the future. Don't think that Yijie's body of a god is so huge that his moving speed will be very slow. With the divine power accumulated by Ego's body over millions of years, it is completely possible to drive this huge body effortlessly, making movements that are more flexible and swift than Loki's. Even if Loki himself can avoid Ego's attack, but the monk can't escape the temple if he can escape. Ego knows that he is from Asgard, and Serta may not be able to play at that time, and Asgard will usher in a Ragnarok. How did it become like this? In the movie Guardians of Galaxy, those few rotten fish and rotten shrimps can be easily dealt with. How come it's difficult for me to upgrade to hell? No, you must not let this guy get out. Otherwise, I will become a sinner of Asgard. Things had gotten to the point where Loki had given up on his original plan to kill Egg. Now he can't be sure where the other party has transferred his core. To change the current situation, Loki has only one choice: to freeze Ego and the entire planet together. He began to frantically extract the energy of the power gem from the Millennium Block, and even the Frost Titan's blue skin, which had been covered by Odin's magic, was exposed at this time. Loki constantly challenged his limits. His body temperature was dropping at a terrifying speed. Until his body temperature was infinitely close to the critical state of absolute zero, Ice Age. With the release of the skills, the energy gathered in his body was instantly transformed into frozen air, and then starting from his body, it began to spread rapidly towards the entire planet. And this whole process lasted a full day and night. Through his own body, Loki constantly converts the energy transmitted by the 1,000-year building blocks into frozen air, adding ice seals on the surface of the planet over and over again. Eventually Loki was exhausted and had to stop. And at the moment, this planet, together with Ego's body, has been frozen under the Ice Age and turned into a large ice ball with a temperature infinitely close to absolute zero. If there were no accidents, at least within 100,000 years, Yijie would not be able to escape from the ice. Stopping the move of the power of freezing, Loki raised his hand to wipe the sweat from his brow. using the power of freezing for one day and one night to release the move of Ice Age. Even if there are thousands of years of building blocks constantly providing magic power, it is not a small test for Loki's spirit. And even if he managed to freeze Egg now, Loki wouldn't be happy at all. After all, his goal at the beginning was to kill this scumbag, but now he just used Ice Age to freeze Yi Jae. Loki knew very well that this was not a hopeless situation for the god Egg. With a near-eternal life, this long 100,000-year freeze can be regarded by Yi Jae as a short nap. And when Egg wakes up from this hibernation, perhaps Loki has already disappeared in the long river of time. But this time the car rollover is not all bad. At least Loki knows through this incident that when he wanders outside in the future, he should at least hide his true identity first. When he and Egg's duplication first met on the planet Morag, the other party identified his origin through the conspicuous Asgard costume on his body. This also led to when the subsequent developments gradually exceeded his control. For the sake of Asgard's safety, Loki had to continue to bite the bullet and stand in a stalemate with Egg. Immediately after realizing this, Loki magically changes his clothes and appearance. Not only that, he also planned to go to Nidavel to find Ikui, and then make a mask for himself. Because wearing a mask is easy to give others a psychological hint, making it easy to think that the person's true face is under the mask. In this way, even if Loki takes off his mask while eating, others will think that his magically conjured appearance is his real appearance. Loki's hand is really a panda order, the bamboo shoots are home. The title of the god of lies and deception is indeed well deserved. Loki had come to Nidavel with ease, and Eitri knew why he came when he saw him. Tell me, this time I want to help you build something weird and weird again. Loki shook his head and smiled wryly. When did I leave such a bad impression on you? That being said, Loki was not at all polite to Eitri when it came time to ask. I want a mask this time. You can use the shape and material yourself. There are really no weird requests. After listening to Loki's request, Ikui suddenly laughed heartily. Hey, what's the matter with you? Have you received professional training? Besides, is what I said so funny? Loki looked at Ikui depressedly, not knowing what kind of nerves the other party was having. Ha 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 ha, this has nothing to do with you. No, it seems to have something to do with you again. In short, it's been a long time since I met a party A like you who allows me to play freely without mentioning any conditions. Do you think I can be unhappy? Ha 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 ha. Oh, I see. Loki understood instantly, nodded and thought in his heart. As a worker who also had experience with Party B in his previous life, Loki expressed his understanding of Ikui's mood at the moment. But as if recalling some unpleasant memories, Loki quickly shook his head again, looking at Eitri with pity in his eyes. Ikui is still too naive. Sometimes, the Party A who doesn't ask for anything is the scariest Party A. Loki just muttered in his heart, and couldn't help shivering. Fortunately, Ikui met himself, and Loki was not one of those Party A who didn't know anything but liked to point fingers, asked people to change, and finally adopted the first version of the plan. He wants to protect Ikui's dream, and let Ikui know that Party A also has a heartwarming little angel like him. Then, well, Ikui, I think the small details here are still a bit awkward, can you change it? What does the treatment of this place want to express? I don't want you to think, I want me to think. Okay, stop making trouble and listen to me. Well, after constant trial and error, it seems that the first version is the most suitable for me. Ikui, please work harder and change the design back. After speaking, Loki turned his head and saw Ikui's blood-red eyes, and he was still holding the big hammer he used when forging metal in his hand. Ah, Loki, you are so weak. I'm going to kill you. In the end, after experiencing Ikui's pursuit round after round, Loki successfully brought Ikui back to Asgard with the wood of the world tree. But the next time Loki wants to ask Ikui for help, it will probably be 100 years later. Because of the psychological shadow he left on Ikui, it won't take 100 years to recover. ... Hey, Heimdall, long time no see again. Loki, who teleported back using the flying Thor, did not forget his mission as the god of mischief. When he had just returned from studying in Kamar Taj, he had secretly left Thor's magic mark on Heimdall's shoulder while they were chatting. It was supposed to surprise Heimdall by showing up at his side while he was on duty. But later, because of various things, this prank plan was temporarily shelved. But Loki's mischief may be late, but never absent. Just taking advantage of this opportunity to return to Asgard from Nidavellir, Loki wanted to complete this prank that had been stranded for several years. So that's where it started, the scene where Loki pops up next to Heimdall to say hello. But Loki forgot a very important thing, that is, he is not only wearing a mask with a strange shape, but also using magic to change his appearance. In this case, Heimdall's first reaction as the guardian of Asgard was to swing the guardian sword in his hand and chop off the head of Loki, the stranger, who suddenly appeared. Unexpectedly, Loki, who Heimdall said, "If you are a brother, come and slash me," before he could react, he was directly chopped into ice slag by this sword. Fortunately, the power of freezing has the passive skill of elementalization, otherwise Loki's joke this time would be a big one. Loki's elemental body shattered into ice shards quickly returned to its original shape, but Heimdall's second sword followed. "Wait a minute, Heimdall. It's me, I'm Loki." Seeing that Heimdall was about to attack him, Loki hurriedly opened his mouth to reveal his identity while narrowly dodging the opponent's sword. But what Loki didn't expect was that after hearing Loki revealing his identity, Heimdall swung his sword faster. How could Loki not know now that Heimdall had already seen through his identity, and wanted to seize this opportunity to take revenge? It can be said that this time Loki not only failed to play a prank, but was also tricked by Heimdall. He could only quickly take off the mask on his face, remove the disguise of magical changes, and reveal his original shape in front of Heimdall, which dispelled Heimdall's idea of continuing to attack. Alas, Heimdall sighed in disappointment as he sheathed his sword, obviously dissatisfied with not being able to teach Loki a painful lesson. Wow, Loki immediately felt his heart pierce. I didn't expect, you Heimdall, a guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes, also betrayed. But what about Loki? As his future brother-in-law, Loki definitely chose to forgive Heimdall. But Loki couldn't help but think to himself in the bottom of his heart, HMPH. Heimdall, what you stabbed into my body today, let Sif repay it for you from now on, Hia. After bidding him farewell under Heimdall's angry eyes, Loki went to the palace to greet Odin and Frigg according to the old rules, and cancelled the leave by the way. From Odin, both Sif and Thor are now out on missions, not in Asgard. After coming out of the palace hall, Loki went back to his room to rest. After using Ice Age to freeze Igo for 1 day and 1 night, Loki hasn't rested until now. In the days that followed, Loki once again lived a routine life. After returning to Asgard this time, Loki has no plans to leave the 9 realms in a short time. More precisely, Loki doesn't intend to leave the 9 realms until he completes the system tasks. The task of Prince's Revenge has been delayed for nearly 20 years. If you don't complete it as soon as possible, you won't be able to get the system reward for a long time in the future. The main content of the mission is for Loki to avenge Lof, the Frost Titan king who abandoned him, and to realize the rule of the Jotunheim kingdom and become the real king. In other words, to accomplish this task, 2 goals need to be achieved. First, defeat Lao Fei and use his own strong strength to prove that it was wrong for Lao Fei to abandon himself in the first place. Second, replace Loki as king of Jotunheim. The first goal needs to be accomplished by Loki with his own strength, while the second goal needs to be accomplished with the help of Asgard's power. So after a long time of careful thinking, Loki thought of 3 ways to accomplish this task: top, middle and bottom. The worst strategy is the simplest and the longest time consuming. There is only one word in the core strategy, that is, wait. Wait until the peace agreement between Asgard and Jotunheim expires, and wait until the end of the law is approaching. Lao Fei, who was dying, could definitely not be Loki's opponent. At that time, Loki was the royal blood of Jotunheim, and Asgard was the backer. Succession to the throne became definitely a matter of course, and the task was naturally completed. But Loki is the least likely to choose this method. After all, the long waiting period consumes his most precious growth time. The core strategy of Jonche is cheat. The middle strategy is more difficult than the low strategy, but if everything goes smoothly enough, the task can be completed soon. And this cheat, Loki not only has to fool Asgard, but also has to fool Jotunheim. Asgard's Bifrost is made of a special crystal material, because this material is very sensitive to space wormholes, resulting in many natural space intersections throughout Asgard. These intersecting points of space are very hidden and few people know about them. As long as you can find these intersecting points, you can leave Asgard and go to other countries in the Nine Realms without going through Bifrost. Loki hadn't been to Jotunheim before, so he couldn't teleport there by flying Thor. If you want to deceive Odin and hide your entry into Jotunheim, you must first find the intersecting point from Asgard to Jotunheim. To complete this step, it can only be regarded as cheating Asgard, and to cheat Jotunheim, Loki needs to use magic to change into Lof's appearance after defeating Lof, and come out to rule the entire Jotunheim as a fake Lof. As for the best strategy that Loki thinks is the most effective, has the highest success rate, and is also the most perfect solution, the key lies in 2 words, open. Don't forget, he, Loki, is a time traveler, and he also has the gold finger of this system. Although his gold finger is a little less sophisticated than the systems in other novels, it still provides a lot of powerful skills. And this has to mention the reward he got from the system when he completed the 3rd side mission. Skill: Flower in Mirror and Moon in Water complete hypnotic ability. Proficiency: 80%. Skill Introduction: The Zanpakuto Hajikyu skill from a hairsprayer. The effect is to control the opponent's 5 senses and magic power induction, so that he can completely believe in the appearance, shape, quality, touch, and even smell of a specific object as the master wants. The precondition for full hypnotic ability to be activated is that the opponent needs to see the host using the skill, Flower in Mirror and Moon in Water. But as long as you touch the host before the full hypnotic ability effect is activated, you can avoid the control of the 5 senses. The conclusion of the full hypnotic ability skill effect is, shatter, shatter. For those who completely rely on the 5 senses to observe the world, the skill effect of Mirror Flower and Water Moon complete hypnotic ability is invincible. In other words, at least in the 9 realms, there is no living body that is immune to the effects of infernal beauty, full hypnotic ability. And with this skill, Loki can pull off the biggest prank he has ever planned in front of everyone. Loki will act as the screenwriter and director of this prank, and through the ability of complete hypnotic ability, fictionalize events one by one. He planned to use 20 days to show the whole prank to the end, isn't he very bold? And in the end, the events one by one will all be connected in series to form a complete storyline. And the main plot of the whole story, Loki, has already been planned. At the beginning, let Lof bring his own men to Asgard for a visit on the grounds of promoting friendly exchanges between the 2 peoples. During the period, it was discovered that Loki, the second prince of Asgard, was actually his own flesh and blood that had been abandoned by him. In a rage, Lof wanted to take action to destroy the shame of the Frost Titan family, but after the real fight, he found that the baby he once thought was a defective product had now become a stronger existence than him. Lof, who lost to Loki, finally realized his conscience and realized his mistakes back then. In order to make up for his debt to Loki, Lof, who was so guilty, proposed in front of Odin himself that he decided to hand over his throne to Loki to inherit. Definitely there must be a lot of content and details to fill in, but if Loki's prank can be successfully completed, he can avoid all risks and restrictions, complete the task in the shortest possible time, and take away the one he already has. Long-awaited system rewards. That was the only time since Loki's system awakening. In the mission introduction, he saw the system rewards with the word, super, as a prefix. In order to get the reward, Loki can't wait to finish the big show. Woo, this is really not a good place to live. No wonder Lof wanted to invade Midgard back then. If you want me to stay in this ghostly place where the seasons are like winter and the sun is never seen for thousands of years, I definitely can't stand it. Jotunheim, just arrived in this cold and barren country, Loki couldn't help complaining. Even the Frost Titan, which was born in the cold, can't bear the environment of this land. One can imagine how harsh the conditions here are. Not only did Loki take the initiative to come to this extremely cold place, but in order not to attract anyone's attention, it took a lot of time to find the intersection point between Asgard and this space. Leave a mark here. Next time you come here, just fly Thor. Outside of the Frost Titan's palace, if this can be called a palace, Loki has left a magic imprint of flying Thor. It is really the architectural style of Jotunheim, which was damaged by the war in Syria, which makes it difficult to associate it with the word, royal palace. You have come so far to die, Asgardian. Loki was about to step into the palace hall, when he heard the sound that was constantly reflected by the surrounding ice walls and entered his ears. He didn't make any disguise today, and he was wearing the royal clothes of Asgard. Coupled with his appearance similar to other Asgardians, it was no wonder that Lof called him an Asgardian as soon as he opened his mouth. You are so angry, your highness Lof. I thought your temper should have been beaten by Odin 20 years ago. If we only talk about the firepower of verbal attacks, Loki can probably reach level single universe. What he said was equivalent to directly uncovering Lof's scar, and then did not sprinkle salt, but directly sprayed fire on it to roast it. Now, even Jotunheim's coldness cannot suppress Lof's anger. Odin is a murderer, a robber. Boy, I tell you, don't think that Jotunheim and Asgard have signed a peace agreement, so I dare not do anything to you. Believe it or not, even if I kill you now, Odin will not do anything to me for the so-called peace of the 9 realms. Lof's angry roar echoed in the empty palace of Frost Titan, and with Lof's anger, Loki could feel that even the surrounding temperature dropped a lot. It turns out that what he said just now really aroused Lof's murderous intentions. But Loki didn't panic at all. Instead he showed a disdainful smile on his face, and said calmly, Lof, since I appeared here, you have made 2 mistakes. The first point, based on my place of birth, you shouldn't call me an Asgard, but a Jotunheim. Saying that, Loki took off the magical disguise that Odin had set for him, revealing Blue's skin, which was originally the blood of Frost Titan. Second point, from the perspective of strength, you are not my opponent at all, so even if you dare to attack, it is absolutely impossible to kill me. I'm not targeting anyone, I mean everyone here is happy. The voice fell, and the palace fell into an unprecedented silence. The silence was not only because of Loki revealing his true identity, but also because of Loki's last arrogant speech. But soon, Lof's wanton laughter broke the silent atmosphere. Ha 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 ha. I said how the child who was abandoned by me to the apes disappeared later. It turns out that Odin is not only a murderer and a robber, but also a scrap collector. Ha 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 ha. So you came here today because you want to avenge me, my biological father. However, it's 1,000 years too early for a flower like you that grew up in a greenhouse to challenge Jotunheim and Frost Titan. Hey, facing Lof's ridicule and insult, Loki's face became sad, and he couldn't help sighing while resting his left hand on his forehead. This is really a headache. Originally, I didn't intend to kill you. Now that you say something like this, what should I do if I don't hold back when I do it later? The script behind it will be completely messed up, gone. While Loki was speaking, a vague black mist began to emerge from his body. At this moment, all the eyes in the palace staring at him, the intruder, will see a scene of flowers in the mirror. Kill him, little ones. Following Lof's command, the Frost Titans who had been hiding in the palace all jumped out of the shadows and surrounded Loki tightly. Even the 2 tens of meters tall monsters frozen on both sides of the main hall were awakened by Lof. But Loki changed his previous sad look, and the smile on his face gradually changed. Come on, let the storm come more violently. 2 huge amounts of monsters and hundreds of Frost Titans began to exert their own killing instincts, constantly attacking Loki. These lethal killing moves landed on Loki one after another, but instead of Loki's screams, there was a sneer that sent chills down the spine. Gia Gia Gia, is this all you guys are capable of? Frost Titan's ability is not used like you guys, let me teach you how to play with ice. Frozen moment. A large amount of freezing air spewed out from Loki's body in an instant, and those Frost Titans who rushed towards him one after another couldn't react at all, and were frozen by the cold air with terrified expressions on their faces. Aren't you going to do it yourself? King of Jotunheim and Frost Titan, your highness Lof. Lof's red eyes were full of anger, but he didn't act rashly because of Loki's provocation. Because the freezing ability that Loki showed just now completely exceeded his expectations, and this effect is not inferior to Casket of Ancient Winters at all. Since you won't come down, I'll go up in person. After all, I'm very interested in the throne of Jotunheim. Saying that, Loki's figure dissipated like mist, and then appeared in front of Lof again under Lof's astonished gaze. Why, didn't you say you were going to kill me? I've already sent it to you personally, so don't force me to do it first. After all, I might not be able to help but kill you if I do it, biological father. Jotunheim, in the palace of the king. Boom, 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 boom. Lof was kneeling on one knee, punching the ground repeatedly. His fist was covered with thick ice, and there were sharp ice picks on the surface of his fist. When he turned his attention to the place where Lof punched and dropped, at the moment had already been smashed into a deep hole on the ground. Inside the deep pit were some broken strips of cloth and a bloody corpse. Although the face of the corpse could no longer be distinguished, it was not difficult to tell from the color and pattern of the cloth strips that the real identity of the corpse was Loki. However, the strange thing is that Lof, as the winner, not only did not stop because of Loki's death, but the expression on his face was not so much venting, but madness after being terrified to the extreme. It didn't take long, though, to find out why Lof had become so weird. I saw that in the deep pit that was smashed by Lof's fist, the corpse that was almost turned into a pulp began to squirm gradually. The squirming pieces of flesh came together little by little, and slowly spliced together into two bloody arms. These arms firmly grasped Lof's falling fist, preventing Lof from continuing to attack. At the same time, the remaining pieces of meat continued to squirm towards the two hands, and finally formed a complete body again. Loki, who had been killed by Lof just now, was resurrected with a strange and evil smile at this moment. Seeing this scene, Lof began to twist his body frantically, broke his hands free and hugged his head and shouted. At this moment, even Lof, who has lived for thousands of years and seen countless big scenes, couldn't stand it and began to collapse. Because the scene that happened just now has been repeated at least 1,000 times before his eyes. Every time he thought he had killed Loki, Loki would be resurrected in various ways and stand in front of him. Is this broken? Oh, looking at you now, I don't even have the heart to hit you anymore. Loki spread his hands, with a look of unfinished thought. Facing Loki's ridicule, Lof, who had completely collapsed, couldn't think of any resistance at all, and with huge amounts of body directly knelt down facing Loki. What is the purpose of your coming here today? If you want to take revenge on me, then you have succeeded. If you want to put forward some conditions, then no matter what the requirements are, I can promise you. But please, let me go. Oh, can you do anything? What if I want to replace you as king of Jotunheim? Loki said to Lof with interest. Lof's pupils shrank when he heard Loki's condition, and subconsciously wanted to refuse. But when the words came to his lips, he realized that he couldn't open his mouth because he was too scared. Loki shook his head, and his tone became indifferent. It seems that you haven't realized the gap between us, so I'll let you see how cruel the truth is. As Loki's voice fell, Lof felt that the scene in front of him began to change constantly, and his eyes gradually blurred. When his sight became clear again, all the scenes in his memory had disappeared, replaced by a scene like hell. In the entire palace, there are corpses of Frost Titan everywhere, and everyone's death is extremely tragic, just like those Loki who were killed by him before. How about it? Don't the death conditions of your subordinates look familiar? That's right, don't doubt yourself, that's what you think, one of them counts as one, but they all died at the hands of you, the king. Your 5 senses were manipulated by me at the time, so you may not be able to feel it. You loyal subordinates, when you see the king you are loyal to kill yourself, that expression. Tisk, 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 it's really wonderful gone. Lof, if you don't want to give me the throne, you don't want to become a lonely man, do you? Lof's eyes were out of focus and his head was bowed. At this moment, he finally gave up his pride as the king of Jotunheim and his dignity as a Frost Titan, and said to Loki, I agree, the throne of Jotunheim is yours from now on. But then, Loki's reaction was very unexpected. He shook his head at Lof and said, no. Lof was stunned instantly. Isn't that what you asked for? Labor and management have agreed now, but you say no. Loki. No, just your consent is not enough. Asgard as the ruler of the 9 realms, this matter must be approved by Odin. By the way, I don't seem to have told you, my name is Loki, Loki Odinson. I have already prepared the script for you. Tomorrow, you will take your own men and follow the arrangement on the script. After the matter is completed, I will spare your life so that you can continue to eat and drink in this ghost place, etc. Die. Did you understand what I said? Lof turned his head and looked around. I understand everything, but where do I have any subordinates now? They are all dead in my hands. Loki looked at Lof with disdain. That's why you can't win me. Everything you think you see is actually what I want you to see. Since I'm going to be the king of Jotunheim, how can I let these laborers who will serve me in the future die? Break it, mirror flower water moon. Once again, Lof's eyes began to blur, and the scene in front of him continued to change. After everything was settled, Lof looked around the palace again. At this time, there were no corpses and bloodstains, and even the traces of the fierce battle just now disappeared without a trace. All the Frost Titans were hiding intact in the shadow of the palace, and even himself at the moment was sitting on the throne. In the main hall, Loki's figure has disappeared. If it weren't for the script in Lof's hand, he would have thought that everything was a dream he had. However, until at the moment, Lof did not dare to 100% determine whether everything he saw, heard, smelled and felt was absolutely true. Compared with doubts about the reality of the whole world, the fear of Loki has become the only thing Lof can confirm. Get up, Vico. If you sleep on, you won't be in time for the wedding of the king and queen. On a huge amount of ice bed, a Frost Titan teenager named Vico rubbed his eyes that were still a little confused, with an obvious sleepiness on his face. But even so, he still managed to get up from the bed. The Vico family lived in a 2-story igloo. They went downstairs from the bedroom on the 2nd floor. Vico went to the bathroom on the 1st floor to wash up and put on a grand dress. Today is the wedding day of Loki, the king of Jotunheim, and Sif, the goddess of Asgard. For this reason, the people all over the country spontaneously held celebrations to bless the wedding of Loki and Sif. The Vico family, who lived in the royal capital, was fortunate to be able to witness the wedding ceremony outside the palace today. The reason why Loki's wedding has received so much attention from the people is not because of his status as a king, but because of the changes he has brought to Jotunheim since he inherited the throne. 50 years ago, the previous ruler of Jotunheim, King Lof, suddenly announced his abdication during his visit to Asgard and handed over the throne to the current king Loki. At first this decision was opposed by Odin, the king of Asgard, but under Lof's repeated insistence, Odin decided to give Loki a chance to prove himself. Odin will only approve of Lof's decision if Loki successfully passes the 3 tests he set. Neither Lof nor Loki disputed this. Therefore, Odin set 3 checkpoints for Loki that can verify virtue, wisdom and skill. The first level is a test of courage. Loki needs to take a bone from the treasure trove of the Asgard wolves. Those who enter the treasure house of wolves will have the most terrifying hallucinations in their minds. If you want to complete the task, you must overcome your own fear. The second level is a task of testing wisdom. Loki needs to steal a bird's egg from the top of the mountain where the Asgard condor hovers, and protect it carefully. The task of this level was not completed until all 3 tests were completed and the bird eggs were not damaged. The third level is a test of character. Loki needs to retrieve a piece of gold in an old mine full of gold. If you can't overcome your greed and take multiple pieces of gold, the mission will be considered a failure. After passing 3 checkpoints and obtaining 3 items, Loki still needs to take them back to the palace, and hand them over to Odin to judge whether Loki has completed all tasks and passed this test. After the trial began, Loki first came to the first level to test his courage. To pass this level, Loki needs to enter the wolf pack's treasure house to take a bone. Although there are wolves around here, if Loki just enters to take a bone, he will not be attacked. The hardest part of this test is overcoming your own fears. As Loki went deeper, a mist began to rise around him. At the same time, Loki's most frightening visions began to appear in his vision. In the vision, Hela, Infinite Thanos, Celestial Group, Kong the Conqueror, one after another powerful enemies appeared in Asgard. They killed Odin, Frigga, Sif, Thor, and many innocent Asgard people, but the weak self was powerless to resist, and could only watch Ragnarok come. Desperation began to permeate Loki's body. In the fog of the wolf pack's treasure house, Loki lost his courage, his legs weighed 1,000 pounds, and he couldn't move forward. However, just as Odin, who had been watching from the sidelines, was about to stop the test, the fog in the treasury began to lift. And Loki also woke up from the illusion, and easily got a bone in the wolf pack's treasury. Seeing that Loki successfully passed the first test, Odin had a gratified expression on his face. But what Odin may not know is that it is not his courage that Loki can pass this level, but the skills rewarded by the system. In ninja genjutsu, there is an auxiliary genjutsu that can deal with this situation. Magic Mirror World Turn. Decipher the illusion cast by the enemy on oneself, and completely reflect the effect of the spell on the enemy. It was at this critical moment that Loki remembered this illusion, successfully dispelling the fog and getting the bone required for customs clearance. Then Loki came to the second level to test his wisdom. For Loki, it can be said that this level is not difficult. As the god of tricks, he may not have great wisdom, but he definitely does not lack small cleverness. After Loki came to the cliff where the condor was, he directly used the skill of Mirror Flower and Water Moon Complete Hypnotic ability. The condor, whose 5 senses are dominated by Loki, took the initiative to grab an egg with his claws, and then followed Loki. With the condor by his side, helping him carry and protect the eggs, Loki doesn't have to worry about the eggs being damaged during the third mission and on the way back. In this way, one person and one eagle came to the third and last level of this test, the Old Mine. This level will test Loki's character. The Old Mine is a cave full of gold almost everywhere, and it is a difficult test for anyone to be able to take only a piece of gold in such a place. But in Loki's opinion, this is the easiest of the 3 levels. It wasn't that Loki was ever noble, or that he didn't like gold. It's just because compared with the rewards that can be obtained from the system after completing the mission, mere gold is worthless in Loki's eyes. Loki pulled out his dagger, pried out a piece of gold from the wall of the old mine, and turned away without a trace of regret. In the end, Loki successfully passed the test set by Odin with the proof of completing the 3 major levels, and became the new king of Jotunheim. After Loki succeeded to the throne, in order to win the hearts of the people as soon as possible, the first thing he did was to change the entire natural environment of Jotunheim by himself. The most fundamental reason why Jotunheim is so cold is actually determined by its position in the world tree. In the world tree system composed of 9 kingdoms, below Jotunheim is Niflheim, the underworld of ice and snow. Niflheim is a world made entirely of ice, snow and death. The biting cold wind that blows continuously in Jotunheim all year round comes from Niflheim. In the world tree, above Jotunheim is the kingdom of elves, Alfheim. As a race that loves natural plants and yearns for light, almost all places in Alfheim are covered by towering trees planted by elves. And this also almost completely blocked the light that should have entered Jotunheim through Alfheim, and Jotunheim fell into darkness. The dark surroundings and icy winds have resulted in Jotunheim's desolate and harsh natural environment. In order to change this, Loki first found the connection point between Jotunheim and Niflheim on the world tree system. Then Loki used the energy of the 1,000-year-old building blocks and the skill of freezing power to build a great wall of ice thousands of meters high, blocking the biting cold wind blowing from Jotunheim and Niflheim. Immediately afterwards, Loki found a young fixed star in the universe, and used the ability to fly Thor's mine to bring the entire planet back to the galaxy where Jotunheim is located. In this way, with the efforts of Loki, he successfully dispelled the haze and cold of Jotunheim, and brought the first ray of light to the people of this country since they were born. So Loki in Jotunheim still has the reputation of the Sun King. Behind the name is the great deeds that Loki has accomplished. Definitely, the change of the environment is only the first step that Loki has taken to change the country. In the next 10 years, Loki has successively carried out reforms in politics, economy, military, medical care, education and other aspects. From the status of Loki in the hearts of all Jotunheimers today, it can be seen that these changes have achieved huge amounts of success, and the lives of the people are getting better and better. While Loki was dealing with these national affairs, he did not forget to solve his own lifelong affairs. The relationship between him and Sif, after 50 years of watering and careful cultivation, is finally bearing fruit, and the two will join hands to enter the palace of marriage. In this regard, the parents of Odin and Frigga are still very happy, although the result is a little bit wrong. Sif married Loki instead of Thor. But no matter what, as long as it is their daughter-in-law. The only two who aren't too happy are probably Heimdall and Thor. Thor is a little better. His feelings for Sif, to put it bluntly, is the young Mui, and it is not an unforgettable love. Although there is a little sadness in my heart caused by the unilateral loss of love, but more blessings to Sif. As for Loki, forget about blessings or anything. Not cursing him is already Thor's greatest tolerance as a big brother. He is obviously a younger brother, but he is ahead of himself in every way. Be the first to be the king, the first to be the husband of Sif. It's strange that Thor can bless him. Not to mention that Loki had left an indelible psychological shadow on him before. Fortunately, Loki has been so busy dealing with Jotunheim's affairs these years that he has no time to continue torturing him. But Heimdall didn't have such a good attitude as Thor. Heimdall, who was sitting at the wedding scene, gritted his teeth and looked at Loki, the who abducted his precious sister, and his teeth were about to be crushed. If Odin and Frigga were not there, Heimdall would have rushed to stop the wedding. In any case, the wedding between the king of Jotunheim and the goddess of Asgard finally came to a successful conclusion. After sending all the guests away, the two returned to the palace. The rest was indescribable. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.